What is something about the company you work for that they would not like the customer to know? University of Phoenix admissions rep and former UOP instructor. You don't have a JED. No problem. My boss knows a guy that can get you a JED in 3 days for $100. No test needed. Point. You are worried about tuition costs? No worries. We will get you all the grants and loans you need. Deferment is a wonderful idea. Point. You need cash now? No problem. I can make it so you can a few extra $1,000 from your student aid by misrepresenting your income, dependents, and ethnicity. Scared that college will be hard and time consuming? Nope. For $100 a class, I can give you an email address to someone who will organize you, post discussions, do your assignments, with a minimum of a B grade. Point. Failing a class and scared about getting expelled? Tell the dean of the school that your instructor told an off-color joke about racism, sexism, or rap. Automatic A. Concerned about finding a job after graduation? No problem. We have several outbound call centers that cannot wait to hire you, so you can call people to collect money from them. Point. Don't want to work at a call center? As I have been told by dozens and dozens of recruiters, if you mention that you have a degree from any for-profit school, UOP, Kaplan, DVRY, etc., your resume is thrown away. Point. Think the government will shut us down? Ha. University of Phoenix spends millions of dollars to lobby senators and representatives to not look our way, instead shut down the smaller colleges. Corinthian is the latest victim. The amount of money I see wasted here is astounding. There's a place called the RPAT yard where they shred/incinerate everything in an effort to reduce US presence in Afghanistan. It doesn't matter how expensive or reusable it was, just destroy it, so we don't have to worry about sending it home or finding someone to sell it to. Point. Wraps, for example, cost about $500,000 for a vanilla truck. There is an endless field of them on Bagram waiting to be shredded and sold for scrap. They weigh in at about 30,000 pounds and are sold for 93 cents/pound. Call it $30,000 of scrap metal, even though it's probably a lot less. I guess the customers are taxpayers. Edit. From my understanding, most of it is being bought locally and then resold to China. I can't find any corroborating sources, but that's just what I've heard through the RPAT grapevine. Also, shipping them all home would be my second to last option. I would sooner sell them to other governments at a discount. I made this argument to a lady I met doing cost analysis here, and her response was we wouldn't want to give our tactical advantages to other countries, which is an argument I've heard several times. The thing is, MRAPs are designed to be counter-IED. We don't fight with those tactics, so what do we care if other governments have MRAP type capabilities? In a conflict, it doesn't much matter if it's an MRAP or a bicycle. If we hit it with a SMOR, it's not driving anymore. We keep track of all our inventory on a giant erasable whiteboard. There is no other place physically or virtually to obtain this information. Literally someone could randomly walk by and force us to recount thousands of tiny parts. I work at a robotics company and our customers are various hospitals all over the country. Edit. I'm trying to answer what I can, but understand I can't elaborate on some things and others I honestly do not know. I just work help desk, and they treat us exactly how they treat the low-rung jobs of most other places. Hope this clarifies some. Edit 2. Another comment I made somewhere in this comment mess. There are over 100 entries and people walk by and change them at their leisure. Different people working on different robots needing different parts. They actually get a ton done in spite of how it appears. That and we maybe employ 200 people at the most. Less than 60 people are ever in the office at a time. We are tiny. Edit 3. This is a more official reasoning I was presented with a few minutes ago. Woo for being at work. These are level 2 and engineering's words. I was persistent because I wanted to answer this better. The whiteboard does a live count of what we have and what we don't. At least 20 different people can access and ship parts as needed, and with weekends. Only help desk is here on weekends. People need to come in to ship stuff. Sometimes it's someone on level 2, I'm level 1, and sometimes it's someone who is just passing through and found out the night before they would need such and such for when they get to where they are going. It's easier to manage always knowing what the live count is vs constantly going to a machine to update and then wondering if the info is correct, because when you're running around and setting up events it's easy to get distracted. People don't leave the room without updating the board, so it is considered always accurate. This reduces the time wasted constantly asking a bunch of people did you take the last, or you forgot to update the sheet last time and so forth. I work at a radio station. Here are some fun facts. The DJs you hear are rarely live. They voice track hours ahead of time, so they can go to their other jobs. Unless you're an enormously popular DJ, you'll barely make enough money to feed yourself. Hence the other jobs. A lot of the voice tracks you hear are likely from other markets. If a station is too cheap to hire more on-air talent, they'll have someone from another market go over your playlist and voice track. So, if you're in Townsville, Kansas, the DJ you hear introducing that Luke Bryan song coming up may be a hip hop DJ from New Jersey making a little extra scratch. If a DJ is live, he is most likely out doing a remote broadcast. If you see a DJ on the phone at an event, they're probably speaking with an operator back at the station. If you want to mess with them, wait until they start talking, like they are on the air, then yell obscenities, or whatever you're compelled to do. Even if they have a delay back in the studio, chances are the board op is an intern who's not paying enough attention to black you out in time when a DJ says the next track is by request. They're lying 99% of the time. We just make up names to make it sound like we are engaged with the audience. The request line is often just put on hold so that callers think we are being slammed with calls and not just ignoring them. Every market I've worked in has done this. Every market. The playlist for the day is determined at the national level and then distributed to every market. And yes, it's the same 24 songs you're tired of hearing all day just shuffled up. Even locally owned private stations use national music services to do this for them. Oh boy, could I go on. I'm from a third world country. One of the biggest computer software/hardware companies in the world outsource most of their services to us now. This major computer software company has an email service. If you forgot your password or someone has hacked into your account, then it is our job to get you a new password or return the control of your account back to you. So, you fill up a form with identifying details, full name, birthday, at least 5 contacts, subjects of your recent emails, etc. So we can determine if you really are the owner of that account. We cross-check the details that you've provided us with those in your account. How do we do this? Well, we have 100% access to your account. We can read every single email. We can see your contacts, your pictures, and everything. This software company doesn't have any method to prevent us, their outsourced agents, from reading other people's emails. They basically told us, hey, don't read clients' emails. You'll get a reprimand if you do. Even if I don't have a ticket on my queue, I can easily open the emails of anyone I know who uses this email service, as long as I know their username. The same goes for this company's cloud service. We can also open any files that you store in their cloud, even if you set them on private. I can blackmail a lot of people if I want to but I won't do that because I'm a good person. TLDR, some dude from a third world country is reading your emails right now. Not my current line of work, but my previous. Your private data that our service agreements say we would never look at without expressed verbal consent from you? Yeah, we looked through all of it. That illegally downloaded music you have? Yeah, we copied it. Your sexy photos you took that night with your partner? Yep, that 2.0 warranties were great. Anything that wasn't a physical product we actively sold, that is labor, special order items. If it was something we carried in store, good luck getting your money back, even with that receipt saying you bought it yesterday. Deliberate destruction of data? Oh, we could have saved your data easily, but we just didn't care to, unless it was something we wanted. Oh, you need a replacement part? Well, we had plenty of options, but only the most expensive item we carried happened to be the only one that worked with your particular unit. Did I mention that replacement part was needed because we probably broke it on purpose, just so we had justification for replacing something else? That new part that we had to special order that took 3 days. Yeah, it was actually a used part we had sitting around in our scrap pile. We got it for nothing and charged you $80 for it. Did I also mention that, because it was a special order, there was no warranty for it either? We know you like your old version of Windows, but the old versions of it simply don't work with the new RAM we put in your computer, because we fried the last set you had. We offered services we were completely unqualified to provide: macro soldering, coding, website services, certifications we claimed to honor other companies' warranties for certain products that we carried. In reality, we charged you a holding fee that was actually made to cover part of the shipping fee, to send it back to the manufacturer. And by part, I mean the cost of the shipping label. Our collective knowledge of it was not certified by any degree of reality. We often made up bullshit terms and phrases to appease our customers who didn't know any better. If you had any socially detrimental flaw, oh yeah, you were the subject of hours of jokes with other customers about how stupid you were at everything except breathing. If you showed any inclination or expertise towards it, we sent you elsewhere. We couldn't risk having you making a scene when you realized we were indeed the steaming pile of bullshit you initially suspected us to be. We never followed proper disposal procedures regarding damaged parts. Your repair that took 2 weeks could have been done in 20 minutes, right there, on the spot. Why else would we have charged you a rush fee for starting on it immediately? Immediately meant whenever we felt like getting around to it. The more time sensitive something was, the more likely we were not to care about it. And this is just the short list. There's so much more I could go on about. It's amazing we managed to stay in business given all the shitty practices the owners happily endorsed. Much of it was due to our overwhelmingly sincere customer service. I'm pretty sure if management found a way to glue our lips to our customers' ass, they would have had us do that too. We would promise ridiculous things to appease customers who got upset, and then very carefully nickel and dime them out of as much money as humanly possible. So why did I work there? Like so many others, I needed the money, and when you start to get desperate, you find yourself willing to compromise your ethics and morals pretty quickly, if it means putting food on your own table. Edit. It wasn't the Geek Squad or Camp USA. It was a local type store. Edit 2. No, I'm most certainly not proud of my actions when I worked there. Fortunately, I can say I did check in on them several months after I had left, and the business was going downhill and fast. That was 2 years ago, so I'm hoping the local community has found other providers who treat them better. I worked for a big, orange, box hardware store until they cut my hours to 29 to avoid paying me healthcare. I went back to college to complete a degree as I couldn't survive economically on those hours, and my schedule was never stable, so I couldn't get a second job easily. I worked in the garden department and was in management training. My department head would leave the property and come back hours later smelling of weed, so I kind of was in charge of my department. We would not grow the plants/trees we sold, and would hire third parties, usually small nurseries, to grow the plants. Our corporation would sign a contract with these nurseries saying we would water and care for the plants upon arrival. In reality, this was not the case, and in the end the small business fronted the bill. These plants were labeled PBS, or pay by scan, which means the nursery owned them until we sold them, and then both we and the nursery would take profit from the sale. Because of this, there was no incentive for our supervisors to maintain employee staff, to uphold watering schedules, to keep the plants alive, because we didn't own them. So, what would happen would be that plants would come off the trucks, usually scheduled Thursdays before a heavy weekend customer rush, and be placed on the tables for purchasing, and go unwatered. I would get pulled from watering duties all the time, until customers complained, and then I would be allowed to water, for show, so the customers got the idea we cared for the plants. Come Monday, most of these plants would be dead, because they'd have gone all week plus however long they traveled in a semi-trailer to get to us without water. Guess who paid for that waste? Not my corporation, but the little business that grew them. It was what human trafficking is for plants. It disgusted me. We wouldn't compost them either. I even talked with corporate to try to start composting them, but they said it wasn't possible. So, we'd throw plants away by the cartload. We'd sometimes have to order a secondary dumpster for the waste. Also, if there was even a small amount of hail, they'd claim it via insurance and make more profit from that than selling them based on how little we watered them. I figured most people shop at this large orange box hardware store, and you as customers should know this. Still answering questions. We have cost a lot of people their licenses and livelihoods. We install interlocks, a machine that will allow your car to turn on if you don't have alcohol in your breath. The problem is that many do not function properly and report incorrectly. When the client fails a test and says, "I've been sober for a year," we say, "Well, the machine reported alcohol and you can't prove otherwise. Either you fork over $X to cover the violation fees, or we will report non-compliance and you get your license revoked." They have no choice. One day you wake up to go to work and your car doesn't turn on because of the machine. You wonder why. You ask us why. We tell you to tow the car to our shop at your expense and we will look at the unit and refund the tow. We say it was a violation. We won't refund your tow and you also owe us $X for violation fees. The DMV gets a copy of this violation. Your program gets extended for 6 months to a year because of our faulty equipment, which we say we replaced for customer satisfaction and not for malfunctions. All the while you're missing work because we are only open on free 8 to 5. X equals anywhere between $50 and $100. We basically hold licenses for ransom. If you have an interlock right now, feel free to ask me anything. I'll help you beat this monster. Hopefully this doesn't get buried, not because I want the karma, this is a throwaway, but because of how much danger your pets could be in. I used to be a groomer at a fairly famous grooming salon. It wasn't anything you would see on TV, but it was very well known. If there's no window where you can watch the pets being groomed at every stage in the grooming process, choose another groomer. At the salons that don't have any way to watch, the groomers will have all kinds of excuses like, "Oh, it's distracting for people to watch me groom" and such. Don't listen. Yes, in some cases this is true. In my case it's because the animals are being treated like shit and they don't want you to know how rough they are on your companion. So why take the chance behind closed doors with no one able to watch? I watched some of the best groomers in the country, groomers who had friendships with their clients spanning 10+ years, do all of the following. Over the month I worked there, punched a snapping dog in the face and broke his tooth, then claimed the dog did it himself, squeezed an aggressive chihuahua by the throat until he passed out due to lack of oxygen, so he wouldn't be able to fight off the groomer as she picked the hair out of his ears, sprayed ungroomed waiting animals that were barking in their cages with a pressure hose to make them shut up, slammed cats against the wall all the time too. Many times to count, lifted a dog by a leash around his neck to choke him into submission because he was resisting getting into the tub. Didn't rinse out a dog's eyes right away when he got shampoo in them because it serves him right for being an asshole. Deliberately cut dogs' nails so short they bled to punish them for being difficult when the dogs were inevitably really freaked out upon being returned to the owners. The groomers would present bite marks they got from another dog as evidence and would say something along the lines of, "I love dogs, so don't worry about it, but he got me good." They would use the same bite for multiple dogs to prove to the owners that their dogs really were the problem, not to mention scaring the owners into avoiding an investigation as to why their dog is having a meltdown for fear of getting in trouble for having a dangerous dog. TLDR. If you can't watch your pet being groomed, choose a different groomer. Edit. I couldn't call the police because they were friends with every officer in that part of the city. Even the K9s got groomed there. They may have retaliated. These were shitty officers. I did call animal control, but they wanted evidence, and I got fired before I could get a wearable hidden camera. I exchanged blows with the owner's brother when he hung/choked the dog I mentioned above. I had gotten into verbal altercations with the other groomers before that, but that's what pushed me over the edge. I have let as many people know as possible about what goes on there, and their business has tanked after a dog died from head trauma he supposedly inflicted on himself. I work in the ag industry, specifically for a company that sells chemicals, pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizer, and we use airplanes or ground machines, floaters, and sprayers to apply it. The customers know what we do, but if the EPA knew how many chemicals get spilled without being reported, we would shut down. Examples: one day air full tote, 250 gallons of Roundup, glyphosate, got spilled on the dirt, and we just ran water over it. There were tons of dead frogs the next day. I have gotten chemicals spilled on me and all I've done is change clothes. OSHA would also have a heyday with us. We have broken so many rules it's not even funny. We regularly climb on tall things with no safety gear. None of us have forklift operator permits. The CEO follows the rules, but we get so busy and tired we have to cut corners at times to keep him happy. So we had our mistakes from him. I would report it, but I get paid really well, and my dad and brother also work for the company and I don't want it shut down. The examples I gave hardly never happen, but the scary thing is that they do, and one day someone could easily get hurt. Edit. Sorry for the bad formatting. I typed this on my phone while I was taking a sheet. Edit 2. So update. After I got off work for the day I talked to my boss and we documented the times I got chemicals spilled on me. He contacted OSHA and the EPA and they will be out next week to do an education session on chemicals and large equipment. He is going to have a talk with the one guy who is causing the majority of the issues. Hopefully I can report back with good news. This isn't entirely the criteria of the question, but it's definitely something we keep from the public. I work for big AV company. No, we don't make viruses. Yes, our product really does protect you if you configure it right. The thing is, we are an essential part of business networks. People call Microsoft when they have OS problems. People call us when they have its security problems. If you think that your company IT guy is a magical computer wizard, we are the people he calls. We are super mega level 100 wizards. Well, some of us at least. The biggest ugliest secrets we have is the secrets of our bad customers. From banks to hospitals to schools and government agencies, some of the world's largest companies are faking incompetent. I'm talking like can't read a 4-step document, need to have a remote support session to be walked through a software install, still running Windows 2000 incompetent. We have major chain stores that process your credit card information and have computers running XP pre-SP 2 with no antivirus. In case you're not technically inclined, that would be like if you went to get a tattoo and the HIV positive artist took the needle he was going to use on you out of his arm before getting started. We have customers that are infected with data stealing viruses and have been for years, but they are too inept and unwilling to take remediation steps, so they just live with the infection. That's right, businesses that make a profit are treating their computer networks like a diabetic that has gotten their feet amputated. Next time you see a company apologizing publicly for a breach of user information, keep in mind that they probably did have protection installed in their network. They probably just didn't bother to set it up correctly because to them profit is more important than information security. I deliver room service in a high-end hotel, and any unopened alcohol delivered to a room, or brought in and left by a guest, gets resold. It gets bagged up by housekeeping, or picked up by us, brought back to our coolers, and then sold again. I think it's a little weird, especially when it's stuff that the guest obviously brought in, because we don't sell it anywhere in the resort. Edit. To reiterate, this fabulously profitable resort in a tourist city sells alcohol at a 300% minus 400% markup, 21% service charge, and delivery fee. And if the guest doesn't use it, they salvage it like some sort of detention crackhead trying to scrape the barrel to pay the landlord. Also, the servers and supervisors are exempt from overtime pay by some legal voodoo. Also, the place is faking filthy. A couple wet rags will be used to clean schmutzy sheet off of service trays, then used to polish silverware, glassware, whatever surface needs to be wiped with an unsanitary wet rag. Is the rag failing to get the silverware shiny after wiping curdled milk off a tray? Give it a quick rinse in some tap water if you feel like it. Every time you grab a lid to put on a coffee pot is like reaching into a Scrodinger's box of cockroaches. It drives me crazy. The place gets cleaned up real good on inspection day. I guess they check in at security, so we get plenty of heads up. casino, slot machines do not pay out more than they take in. They pay out 90-95% of what is put into them. Eventually we are guaranteed to keep 5-10% of your money. Slot machines have different chances to pay out based on what they are set for. Areas that see a lot of foot traffic, buy food. Finance cages, entrances, will pay more often to give the impression of people winning, but in smaller dollar sign amounts. See first point as to why we can charge as much as we want for things, because we allow you to use your points earned by gambling. It may feel like free money to you, but to us, it is just reclaiming the money we refunded you on the slot machines, which we know we will get back. A loan of sorts. Pharmacy. We don't judge you unless we know you are abusing, and we do know when you are abusing. While we, the employees, do our best to keep prices for drugs affordable, due to contracts, prices on most medications are 100-500% above what we pay for them, and as much as 2000% on rare medications due to the cost to obtain it and the risk of you just dying without picking it up. We purposely try to get the worst tasting, least desired brands of commonly abused drugs. Flavoring your liquid medications is a crazy overpriced monstrosity. One bottle of flavor will cost us a couple dollars and will flavor 20 to 50 medications that we charge $3 for. I used to work for a medium-sized internet company. SSL certificates, web hosting and domain registration. Some of these that come to mind. We didn't have any security policies. None. All of our customers could gain access to each other's directories/sites. We ran 40 GB of customer storage on a consumer-grade NAS system. All of our systems ran outdated and insecure OS, databases and web servers. Our custom CMS had more holes than a colander. Our custom CMS provided less functionality than manuscript front page 1997 at 3 times the cost. If you were unhappy with any of our services, the account managers were instructed to give out SSL certificates for free. Speaking of our account managers, they flat out lied to customers, stating that a website would become unhackable through the use of an SSL certificate. We used customers' data for acquisition purposes. In other words, we looked into their websites to find opportunities and sell them additional services. A huge ethical no-no. Our developers spent more time arguing amongst themselves than actually writing code. Billing information, including credit card info, was stored in a plain text file on a semi-public directory on our root web server. All of our systems were publicly accessible through SSH. Root login was allowed as well. During the year I worked there, 30% of the employees left. SSL vetting procedures were not followed, even though we were contractual obligated to do so. On numerous occasions this resulted in people receiving SSL certificates for domains they didn't even know. Roughly half of our customer base consisted of botheters, CC servers, websites spreading malware and other assorted types of criminal enterprises. Management knew and welcomed this, as cybercriminals pay good money. I was actually asked to remove a virus scanner from a server as it threw a tantrum every time it scanned a Zeus controller installed by one of our customers. We stored no transaction data of any kind for law enforcement. Companies in this industry are legally required to do so, but we didn't. Not because we pretended to be bulletproof or something like that. No. We just thought it was too much of a hassle. Our mount spent more time on designing websites for new products than actually managing the company. One of our account managers claimed to go on visits to customers every day, while in reality he was sitting at home playing video games. It took us 8 months to figure this out. Nobody used named users. Everyone logged in using root. One of our projects entailed scanning all domains in Europe for marketing purposes and generation of sales leads. Due to a configuration error and us having access to a 10 GB uplink, we ended up DDoSing our uplink provider. Our lead software designer/systems architect knew nothing about ITIL, Prince second, Agile or any other more or less recent methodologies. This resulted in terrible quality control, feature creep and past deadlines. Our main project was 2 years past the original due date when I started there and still isn't finished. I've been gone for a year now. Pawn shop clerk. I work in the pawn shop industry. It's nothing like it is on Pawn Stars. We sell used, sometimes broken, crap overpriced, and we know exactly who to lend to. Here's looking at you people on welfare or family allowance. We also buy stolen stuff all the time. It's not hard to tell what is and what isn't stolen, and most of the time, when we should be taking down serial numbers and such, we don't, or if we think it's stolen we type in a random one from the floor. A few of the shops I've worked at even dabbled in the illegal trade of ivory, bear claws and eagle feathers and other such things. One got caught. They all steal from you, and the governor. My daily job involved a lot of book management. Pawn shops make great money, but it's not for the honest. I've sold everything from ivory coffee tables, grey cup rings and firearms, all of which I was not supposed to. Cash Canada is just as sleazy as the private ones. A CMP don't care about your stolen goods. I once had a guy bringing a stolen moose head from a lodge down the street. I bought it just cause. Half hour later our CMP comes in, and it's still on the front desk and has looking for it. First thing out of the RCMP's mouth was, "Is this what I'm here for?" He knew I knew, lol. I said no with a smile ear to ear and he sighed and left. It's easier for us to lie and keep your stuff. Cops don't want the hassle. My house, if furnished with stolen everything. I could go on for hours. If the life of a con man interests you, work at a pawn shop. You will learn quick. Hate me. Hate the gap. Yeah, W.E. hate me IDC. I work for a company that orchestrates help and emergency services for people trapped in elevators. We also handle emergency pull calls. Rule 1. If you are stuck in an elevator, you are not our first priority. You are considered to be safe until the point of passing through the doors. Leaving the elevator is the most dangerous part. Elevator doors will cut you in half if you try to leave before it's safe. Rule 2. You are not special. We handle about 20 entrapment an hour from Canada to Hawaii to the Caribbean and everywhere in between. So sit tight, you might be there a while. Rule 3. Stop faking calling back for an updates. In our office we monitor 18,000 phones. On each shift we have a maximum of 6 people, usually 3 or 4. If you call in after 12 there might be one person, if the other guy is in the bathroom. Every time you call in you're delaying someone else's help. Stop it. You're fine. There could be a 5-year-old drowning in a pool while you call in asking what's happening. 2 minutes after I disconnected with you. Also it takes about 2 minutes to make a call for help, and that's when no one answers, and sometimes we have call lists that are up to 8 people long. We have not forgotten you. We are calling for help. Chillax. We got it. Point. Rule 4. Do not say you need medical attention when you don't. We record everything. The recordings will get subpoenaed, and you will get in deep shit for misuse of the emergency medical system. Rule 5. We will not call the fire department unless there is a fire or you are going to die right now. See Rule #4. We are there to prevent that from happening. The building you're in saves thousands in damages caused by the fire department because of us. You can call them from your cell phone all you want, but I reiterate, we will not call the fire department. Food in our kids' mouths is way more important to us than the group of 18 people who exceeded the weight limit on the cab. Point. Tips and tricks. If you find yourself stuck, push the door open button and hold it for 5 seconds. It will reset the elevator 60% of the time. It may take a minute or 2 to kick in though, if it does. If that doesn't work, push the help button. If it's not security at your building you're at, say testing the phones, and they should read off the address from their system. Verify with them what address you're at and what elevator you're in. Then use your cell to call 911 with that information. Point. Sit tight and relax. The elevator will not drop. There has been one elevator crash in the last 150 years. It was in the Empire State Building in the early 1910s because an airplane crashed into it, causing multiple safety mechanisms to malfunction, and even then the passenger survived because the column of air got compressed under the cab, causing the elevator to bounce all the way down the shaft, effectively decreasing the drop to less than 20 feet. If the elevator has stopped, it has for a reason. If it's gonna fall, you will have no warning, and it is extremely rare. Point. Any questions? Throw away, for obvious reasons. Computer repair cost breakdown for non-warranty repairs. Issue: failing hard drive. Long self-test detects bad sectors that cannot be repaired. Repair cost: $180 part, $55 drive with free 3-day shipping. WD 500 GB 7200 RPM. Labor: $20. Build time 20 minutes. Actual time equals 3 to 5 minutes. plus $70 file backup. Build time 1 plus hour. Actual time equals 10 minutes or less. Markup A. Just round it up to $180 total. Steps. Remove 2 screws, 1 plastic cover, and the drive. Swap drives. Install OS and use key from bottom of machine. Move files over using a SATA to USB case tools. $1 screwdriver. $15 USB 3.0 SATA enclosure issue. Bad trackpad repair cost. $180 part. $29.95 plus 5.99 shipping. Palm rest labor. $105. Build time 1.5 hours. Actual time equals 10 to 20 minutes. Markup A. Just round it up to $180 total with the part. Steps. Remove 12 screws, 2 plastic covers, and 3 cables. Swap palm rests. Watch YouTube tutorial or find a PDF if you don't know the repair yet. Tools, $1 screwdriver, $0.20 plastic pry tool, so you pay through the nose for us to do some basic repairs. For the peace of mind. It's not much work, there are tutorials everywhere, and the parts and tools are easy to find, and usually pretty cheap. Not system boards or screens, but most other parts. It's true there is a lot of risk, and when a customer's computer gets botched we can be out hundreds of dollars. So whenever you come in you're basically paying for our mistakes. Don't get me wrong, you're probably more likely to ruin your machine working on it yourself without an anti-static wrist strap, ESD matted table, and the experience we have. Still, you're paying for a lot that has nothing to do with you personally. If you're even moderately proficient, you could be doing your own repairs. Then again, the people who take this advice are our most profitable customers. You're the ones who come in for new system boards because you screwed up a basic replacement and drilled into your board with a keyboard screw, or let a piece of metal roll around loose after shoving a piece into place incorrectly. Honestly, the people who consider themselves moderately proficient are usually morons who couldn't tell you the difference between a solid state drive and hard drive without looking at the label. So I guess you can take that for what you will. Some of the simplest repairs have been turned into monstrously expensive horrors by computer science majors who think they know how to perform hardware repairs because they passed a few programming courses. I guess I don't feel so bad about the markup after all. I used to work for a collections company. We would call the debtor up retrieve owed debt. Basically, it was a harassment firm. It teaches you the inner workings of avoiding legal issues whilst harassing your debtor to maximum harassment potential. Point calling over calling your work, point calling your boss, calling your family, point calling your neighbor, calling someone on your street. Point basically, so long as we don't leave a message, hang up after a certain amount of time talking. We've got the plausible deniability on our side. So, I was trained to say things like this to poor, elderly people suffering from cancer, just being old in general. If you don't make some sort of payment option today, I'll be forced to forward this account to my legal department. Mind you, this is a empty threat. Usually after saying that, they will pay $50-$100 that time, which brings their account back in the statute of limitations, in which case, if it's over a certain dollar amount, we do send it to legal. But if they had not made a payment, then it was so old it didn't matter. Furthering debt collections horrid practices. We would spend all day owing $50,000, $10,000 accounts, hounding people with large balances because we figured if they are already somewhat talking to us, they are attempting to fix their credit to buy a house. We would do our best to make in a small lump settlement. Say, settle your debt at %30 of original. We fail to recognize this as a payment in full option. More often than not, paying your bill in this reduce amount just lines the pockets of someone in the collection company without actually reducing your debt or upping your credit score. Point let's see, what are some other shady things we would do? Harassment is #1. Making debtor feel guilty. I had multiple people teach me that one. You signed a piece of paper obligating you get some service for money. Now you're just reneging on it? Like some slave? What kind of man doesn't pay his debts? You call yourself a law-abiding citizen? You're as useful to our economy as an illegal alien. Point I can't think of anything else right now. Point everyone in our collection agency, cell center, huge building, was an alcoholic or drug addict. Never was anyone sober at work. Never. Needed Adderall, coke, heroin, pills, pot, booze, beer, cigs. A quick fact in the back room. Want to learn how to pimp? I swear this call center was like walking into hell. My favorite was this fat guy who looked like that fat computer geek from The Simpsons. He would do coke at his desk. He had two of those smell/snort things that wake you up. One was to sniff leave on his desk. The other was in his pocket, had coke in it. He was the reason I quit. He's evil. Never had I seen anything like that. Disgusting. Point never work at a collection agency. Point FDCPA certified is a complete crock of shit. Edit. We bought your debt through seriously unprofessional avenues. Usually bartering it or paying pennies for dollars. We were by say $1 million at landline debt. Who's ever going to pay that? No one. But we bought it for what? A potential agreement to pay some third party who bought it off at only if we actually collect on it. Our good old poverty machine. Just got laid off by New Day Limited, formerly known as Sav Credit Limited until a very recent and very pointless rebrand. Home of the infamous Aqua Card, Marbles and Opus credit cards. Actually, technically, I worked for a major multinational corporation. They paid to do their dirty work, collect debts. In the UK, these cards are running everyone into the ground. Every other call I took on a daily basis, so maybe 45 out of 90, was to set up a payment plan / go through an income and expenditure form because the customer was in financial difficulties and couldn't make their minimum payments. These cards are specifically targeted at people with poor credit histories. It is completely common for them to be issued to the unemployed. When a customer is put on a payment plan or some kind of debt management strategy, we act, and they perceive, as though we are doing them a big favor. In actual fact, everyone at the company is 100% aware at least half the accounts will be defaulted on. So yeah, add New Day Limited / Sav Credit Limited / First Data Corporation to your sheet list. Literally the devil. Don't give me any sheet about how, if they couldn't afford it, they shouldn't take out the credit cards. Many credit cards I'm totally fine with. These cards in particular I think are morally wrong. No corporation should be allowed to issue the vulnerable, unemployed and mentally handicapped a credit card charging in excess of 40% April. They're sucking wealth from the poorest in society and putting it into the hands of their boardroom, directors, and managers. I worked my fair share of part-time gigs. That weight loss program you just paid $399 per month for is a crock of shit. You are expected to pay for a weight loss journal, $50, come in 3 times a week, $60 per session, to meet with someone who has no idea what they're doing and gives no fuck about you losing weight. Spend between $55 to $75 on pills, shakes, vitamins, snack bars that aren't approved by the FDA, and on top of that get made fun of behind your back. Spend enough and you'll lose the weight, but gain it all back plus some when you leave. Seeing a movie? Do not eat the popcorn, and don't even think of getting that golden glorious blob of butter on your popcorn. Just know, on second thought, do not eat any food from a movie theater. Those people serving you have probably been told they are disposable and get attitude and disrespect from supervisors, which is likely passed down from their manager, who get it from their boss because they have a miserable life. Toxic environments infect employees who unfortunately pass it on to you when serving you. Your food is mishandled and half-assed. I won't even get into food prices. Oh my gosh, you look so cute, and that eye rolling welcome you just got for walking into my clothing store is obviously fake. Have nice big boobies and are a size 7+? Just leave. No one will pay attention to you. We want tall and thin in our store. Oh, are you lingering for more than 2 seconds? Be prepared to have at least 2 of us come up to you with clothing items to try on. This would look so cute on you. I'll start you a change room because our numbers are down for the day. On a personal note, I was shamed for being a tomboy and having big boobs. Why even bother to hire me? Policy said we had to buy an outfit when new stock came in. I made pennies and what I earned was supposed to go towards school. I love that the pile of clothes I spent thousands on and will never wear is in a box collecting dust. It took me a while to see what was up, but I left when my new boss called me a hobo. I used to help draft the regulations for computer security for the US power grid. Things were messed up in the beginning because we had people that learned computers in the industry coming up with ideas, but then a new group of security professionals from other industries got involved and things were starting to look like they were going to get fixed. About the time that the bigger utilities realized that the new regulations we were drafting were going to make them have to spend some serious money and actually secure things, they decided they needed to have more say in the process. So they pressured to have more positions on the draft team, created and forced their own votes into the team and started, basically, vetoing all changes. I ended up leaving the industry when I was having panic attacks on Sunday night thinking about coming into work. Things were getting so bad that the DOD wanted to take over, but everyone knew that would never fly. So instead Congress was looking to move security over to Department of Homeland Security. As much as I hated the idea of DHS, I had to admit that it was a better plan than the failed self-regulation process going on. However, that was about the time that Congress changed to the current, no, we won't do anything that might look good state we have now, and the draft legislation fell apart. TLDR. Self-regulation of the power industry has created worthless computer security regulations and our power grid is seriously insecure. There are literally hundreds of websites for purchasing secondary market tickets and most of those sites all go to the same damn call center I worked in a year ago. They work very hard to pretend the businesses aren't related, but if you get calticket.com, Ticket Network, Ticket Liquidators, Tickets Now, TickIQ, Tickets.com, Batickets.com, Front Row Tickets, Ticketek.com, Cheap Tickets, or Excite.com just to name a few, they're all going to the same damn place. It's the same faking brokers listing on hundreds of sites, all going to the same call center. The only difference is some sites have different service fees. Worked there for a year, still can't tell you what that's for. The brokers are already making a ridiculous profit for selling so high above face value and slightly different prices. You're still paying hundreds, possibly thousands more for tickets you may or may not receive. Thankfully, no-show tickets are one of the only things we can actually issue a refund for. Well, that we can ask the broker to issue a refund for. They still get to decide whether or not to actually do it. Just cause you're giving us the card info doesn't mean the charges are going through us. The money never touches our hands, except for our cut after everything's said and done. Maybe that's the purpose of the service fee. It goes right to the brokers, which is something you usually don't find out until you're on our phones yelling about wanting to be refunded. We couldn't, even if we wanted to. Point also, if you're going to call Ticketmaster, for fuck's sakes please listen to the person's intro. If your operator says anything other than thank you for calling Ticketmaster, you're not calling Ticketmaster. Call Ticket and Front Row Tickets are the two most common numbers that'll show up in Google ads when you're looking for it. Reading comprehension can really solve most, if not all of the problems I ever encountered with customers. Their point TLDR, the hundreds ticket places you see are actually all the same place. Not to mention competitors StubHub, Vivid Seats etc. will actually buy tickets from us and each other if they don't have them. Point secondary ticket market is bullshit. Save your dollars for Ticketmaster if you can. Kroger. Second best profit margins in the business. They are constantly cutting employee benefits and hours, all the while telling those same employees that they are valued. On top of all that, they have the gall to force employees to kiss us until their tongues are brown. They made us go through this infernal rigmarole with each and every customer, the hoity-toity rich ladies looking down their noses at you, the crusty drunk buns coming through with bottles of Listerine, the ornery geriatric regular who shamelessly ogles the attractive women while smelling of mothballs and denture paste. Hi. How are you doing today? Did you find everything okay? Good. Have a great day and thanks for shopping at. Made me sick to my stomach every time I had to say it. Why can't I just say hi and scan your groceries like a boss? Instead I have to put on this saccharine facade. I no longer work in that shithole. I ain't kissing as for minimum wage. Those people are not my betters. To be honest, it wouldn't be so bad if half the people didn't straight up snub you when you interact with them. People rarely made eye contact with me. Most simply watch the screen. I lost count of the number of people who would respond with silence. How are you today? glow as I wanted to reach across the counter and grab those G-Wats by their fat little faces and make them acknowledge me. So many rude, entitled assholes out there. If Kroger had given me a little agency or a fatter paycheck, take your pick, I might not have had a problem. Okay, I still would have, but it would have been lessened. If I could have just reacted to people like that instead of sucking it up and moving forward, I would have been much happier. Their point moral of the story, show some goddamn decency, you prick. You know who you are. So I worked with a family member in the reposition business. We always work at night, usually 12 to 6 in the morning, is when we would pick up most of the vehicles. Firstly, never pawn your title. If you miss one payment, the car is immediately reported and will be on a pickup order within 24 hours. If your car is picked up, you're honestly faked. If you have any property that's worth something, cell phones, GPS, etc., it either goes in a box in the office or the repo man's house. Literally, the box we had in the office was slap full of tech stuff easily worth a few grand. Also, we would routinely damage people's cars, backing cars in the lot into each other, road signs, post, mailboxes. All we have to do is report that the vehicle was damaged when we picked it up. Same goes with the property. If it's not on the report, it wasn't in the car. If your car is up for repo, or might be in the future, always put it in the garage, behind the house, or back it up with the license plate not visible to the street. We have cameras that record license plates and their GPS locations in case they come up for repo, and it will set off an alarm, and we'll grab it. Cover up your VIN numbers so they can't confirm the order. VIN numbers will be on your dashboard on the driver's side right under the windshield and in the crack of the driver's side door. Even if the vehicle's plate matches, you're legally supposed to check the VIN, because if it's a computer glitch or an error, then it's considered theft and you can very much sue the shit out of them if they even return it. Always call the cops and sit in the vehicle until they arrive, or preferably behind it, so they can't hook the boom. Immediately tell them they are trespassing and they have to leave your property. It's not Operation Repo, they can't physically move you out of the way, so record the encounter. Once the cops arrive, be as friendly as possible. Tell them he was trespassing and you told him to leave the property. A lot of the time the cops will tell the repo man to fuck off if it's not on the boom. If it is, then it's a coin flip on what they'll say. Point at it. Also forgot to say, the guy host taking your car doesn't give a fuck if you paid your bill or not, or if you had a deal with the bank or whatever. He gets paid on the number of cars he picks up, so whatever you say to him does not matter, he wants his money. Made a throwaway for this. I used to work for a company called New Horizons. It was a computer training company, and they had a business and a consumer side. This was back when the federal government was bankrolling lots of student loans through Sally Me. Basically any schmo off the street could just walk in and get a loan for $17.5 thousand, which was the maximum at the time, that someone could get for an on-state training program. I worked for the business side, basically telemarketing to companies trying to get them to buy training, but we had a consumer side that sold private training programs financed by the government. So the people I work for basically put together a training plan for consumers. They package up about $10k in training, jack the price to $17.5k, and call it a program or a career track that's supposed to prepare you for a real world job in the tech space. Next, they'd post jobs for fake tech positions at fake companies online in our area. They'd pitch the applications from the ones that were actually qualified, and they'd call up only the people who were unsuited for the job. One of our salespeople would conduct a fake interview with the person and would seem really enthused about the person on the other end of the phone. Then, after 45 minutes of a fake phone interview, they'd ask about their qualifications and find that they didn't have a certification or didn't have quite the experience. The interviewer would say that it's really a shame because they are always looking for good people, and have they ever considered taking a few courses to prepare them for the job? They weren't looking to fill the position right away. Would they be interested in banging out a course or 2 or 20? Yes. I'm going to have someone from a place I trust call you and set up a tour of their training facility. We partner with them to find and develop quality applicants. This trusted person was really just the other salesperson in the cube next to them, who would call them 20 minutes later and promise job opportunities out the yin yang. All they had to do was go $17.5 thousand into debt. Fake interview, fake credentials, shitty training, and the worst part was that we only had a job placement rate of about 2%. As I was getting ready to leave this company, I was put in charge of submitting our training programs to the state. Apparently they were getting wise to this kind of thing. I submitted the packets, put in my 2 weeks, and within 3 months I watched a lot of LinkedIn statuses change as the place restructured. Edit, TLDR, I worked for a place that tricked people into taking out a student loan for $17.5 thousand by pretending to be conducting job interviews. The airline I work for is allowed to, and encouraged, to depart up to 10+ minutes early to help on-time performance. It doesn't matter if we see families running up to the gate at the last minute and waving to us. If the jet bridge door to the top is closed and the gate agent has already told the computer how many passengers are on the plane, it would require them to reopen the flight to add more passengers and bags, which might mean a potential delay. In the past, the pilots could tell them they aren't leaving until they reopen the flight and add the passengers, but nowadays there is nothing we can do. The hardest moment of this job so far was watching a young woman with a baby standing in the terminal looking down as we were preparing to leave early on the last flight of the night, meaning she would have to find and pay for a hotel or sleep in the terminal with her newborn overnight. Also, don't drink the coffee if your plane seats 50 people or less. They don't actually make the coffee on board. They put the coffee into these jugs that are kept warm, usually lukewarm, with heating pads. Those jugs are vile. It isn't uncommon to have dead bugs or leftover cleaning stuff in them before they fill them with coffee. Also, if they serve you the full can of Coke, which you can totally ask for, make sure to wipe the top of those cans off with a sani pad, which they will also give you if you ask for it. Those cans are stacked in pallets under the terminal and usually have God knows what leaking on top of them while they are sitting there. I worked for a well-renowned breeder of exotic birds for a year. My biggest qualm with this place is that the owner is a bad person. You could not have a positive interaction with this person and always left feeling bad about yourself. He also paid you whenever he felt like it. As far as I know, none of his workers reported their earnings for taxes. The people who work on the bird farm are a family of workers from South America who the owner rarely pays. This family will literally pull their dollars together to buy bread, while the owner takes lavish vacations for months at a time in exotic destinations. The workers live on site and are basically stuck there. When I was there, one woman wanted to move back to her home in South America, but the owner owed her several $1000s and she wouldn't be able to move until she was paid. This was a few years ago, and she's still there last I checked. The birds are mostly well taken care of. The workers do their best, but are not exactly trained to be working with these birds. There are also only 5 workers caring for over 350 birds. Workers are also sent into enclosures with aggressive birds who naturally attack at the workers' hands and face. One woman had a close incident where a bird attacked her right between the eyes. She would have been seriously injured had the bird attacked slightly to the right or left. The owner does not believe in euthanasia, which is nice, but led to a lot of unnecessary suffering. There was a bird whose legs were deformed so that he could not stand. His legs curled beneath his body, and he would get around by flapping his wings and scooting along his butt. He was kept in a cage too small for him with a wire bottom, so his feathers and state of life in general were poor. He'd often be covered in his own poop because of the way he had to get around. He passed away after a few months. There was a baby born with a deformed beak. This bird was examined by the vet who recommended the bird be euthanized. The bird was allowed to live, and his beak grew in such a way that the top part of the beak curled down and pierced through the bottom beak. He was a sweet and happy baby. The owner created a device kind of like birdie braces to try and correct it, but the bird seemed to be in constant pain anytime he wore it. This bird passed away. If a bird was born with a slightly crooked beak, the beak was mended back into shape for cosmetic reasons by force using hands. The birds would cry in pain every time this was done. There were several birds that were once pets who were extremely sweet and once put into breeding cages plucked their feathers until they were bald. There were a couple birds in the hospital room with absolutely nothing wrong with them who were just kept in cages too small for them for seemingly no reason. It also seemed that many birds passed away. It was at least once a week that we'd find a dead one. I do think this is fairly common though given the number of birds in the collection. Finally, the breeder's website claims that all babies sold are hand tame and sweet. The truth is the birds are hand fed and only receive interaction when they are being fed. Internships are also offered here claiming you will learn tons about breeding exotic birds. The truth is you will clean dishes and rake leaves for 2 months, and your last couple weeks there you will learn to feed baby birds, but not really have enough time to get a handle for it. Thanks Reddit, I needed a good vent about this place. Bean spilling time. No company names, but they shouldn't be hard to figure out. My first job was for a store that sold a lot of electronics and radio parts. My store in particular was a little shack in a strip mall. People hand over their SS hash to these guys and let them take their driver's licenses into the back room without a second thought when they buy a phone. No one went through any sort of background check or drug screening. We all knew exactly how good your credit was, and a number of employees would go on mysterious shopping sprees once every 6 months or so, right after having had a customer with great credit. Basically they figured they could get higher limit CCs with customers' information, and as long as they didn't do it too often, or in the area, they'd usually go a couple towns over, or to a nearby metro area and maximum out the cards in a day or two. This likely isn't standard at most locations but no one seemed to care at my location. My next job was with a certain 3-letter cell carrier. We always had the highest price on phones. We were instructed to add on extras the customer didn't want, that only showed up in the electronic version of the contract that was emailed to them. We cut out UPCs for customers to help them complete the mail-in rebate. The real reason for cutting out UPCs at the store is that it made the phones unreturnable. So even if somebody wanted to cancel our crappy service in the first 15 days they would still have to pay full price, $400 to $500, for the phone which most people couldn't afford. I worked next at a club that's very large. Once again, my job was selling cell phones. No one was given any training. The head of the cell phone department, when I got there, had worked in grocery recently. The scammers knew this and repeatedly attempted to scam our store with identity theft. They soon realized that I knew what was up and ended up coming when I wasn't working. They got almost 100 phones from us under a number of identities before our department was shut down by the police. Worked at Dish Network. They would not like you to know that pressing 1 for tech support and 2 for customer service will take you to the same person regardless. It just determines how much time that CSR is allowed to be on the phone. 5 o'clock for customer service, 8 to 9 minutes for tech, that almost none of the employees that you'll talk to have been trained on. How to service your receiver. We read a script of things to do in order and hope it works. We are encouraged to add products to your account without your permission or even knowledge, even if it just makes us a few cents. If you ask to talk to a supervisor, more than likely you're just going to end up talking to another level 1 CSR because the supervisor is too busy to take the call, read, watching YouTube, playing iPhone games, surfing the web. If you want to cancel, our objective is to give you what you want, but we won't do a lot, and failing that, to give you the runaround long enough for you to get bored/frustrated and give up. We are constantly losing services like channels and are required to shift the blame for the lost service to whoever owns that service instead of our own failure to negotiate. If your service is partnered with a local telephone company, we don't know anything about your account. That tech we sent to your house, yeah, he doesn't work for us. He's independent and doesn't have to worry about doing a good job with fixing your problem because he's probably the only contractor in the area and we can't be bothered to hire our own. Oftentimes these techs will leave these problems unresolved just so that we'll have to send him out and pay him again. Super late to the party. I worked at a hotel doing maintenance for a few years. Let's just call it Christmas in, Thanksgiving in, or Easter in. I think you get the idea. The franchise was owned by a company out east, and we are in the mountain states. Things I saw still bother me. One example, we had a regional manager come in with representatives from the franchise to do the evaluation. Our nicest rooms were on the northwest side of the building 7 stories up. They had a company, cheap fly-by-night, come and replace the windows 5 years previous, and they didn't seal them properly. Needless to say, 5 years of extreme weather, snow, and rain caused a lot of moisture to build up in the walls and cause the wallpaper to peel up because of mold. When our regional manager saw this, he said, spray some glue on the wall and push the wallpaper back on, no one will know. Or, when you would have some douche plug his toilet with sheet and flood the room. They would make us go in, unplug it, put fans on the carpet to dry as fast as possible so they could rent the room. It would take too long if they cleaned the carpets. Always wear shoes in your hotel room, people. Another instance is that there is an atrium that has a balcony on each floor, 7 floors high. We were finally getting Wi-Fi spread through that atrium and in all rooms. Their idea was to 8x2 pieces of wood and a piece of plywood and set them across the corners to stand on and work above to mount the Wi-Fi devices. When I expressed my concern, that was extremely dangerous, especially when I had to stand on it 7 stories up. I was told to do it or find another job. Point looking back, I really wish I would have just called OSHA, the health department, and a lawyer and get a nice little settlement out of the deal. Sigh. I work in an assisted living private home company for mentally disabled patients. What the parents of the patients don't know is, our boss allegedly, bullshit, steals from our monthly allowance for groceries and supplies. The weak staff usually don't interact with them and send patients to their rooms all day, and they only look nice when you see them because the staff shave them and shower them and make them nice 5 minutes before parents and relatives arrive to pick them up for an outing. Oh, and if we have problems in the house, like broken fire alarms, appliances, doors, ceiling fans, or whatever, they only are fixed by my boss if state is about to inspect the house, or if parents are coming by to check up. Otherwise, anything broken or out of fire/state/city code is sitting there until state or parents come by. Point, we had the fire alarm system turned off for 6 months once because it would randomly go off for no reason, and my boss say not to worry, she'd pay for the company to fix it sometime. She waited until a week before out-state inspection. Point, keep in mind, this is a national company with over 20 different districts in my state alone, and they operate in nearly every state in the continental US. Edit. About my company, we are the nation's largest private provider of services to people with disabilities, the largest one-stop workforce contractor, and the largest privately owned home care company. We operate in 42 states, I believe. Edit again. Been fired from my job. Yay. Underscore 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 underscore. Throwaways company is known to be a bit litigious. I worked for this company in the UK. Let's call them Sam Smiths. No, that's too obvious. How about Samuel Smith Old Brewery, Tadcaster? Yes, that should do. Point. If you're at a Sam Smith's pub and your beer tastes warm or flat, it's probably because it came out of a drip tray. Point, company suffers from serious top-down rot. So much wrong with how this company is managed, but it is exemplified in the 95%. The owner demands that for every pint sold, only 95% of that is served. This is the legal minimum that can be served under the Weights and Measures Act, but the only way to have that 5% surplus is if there is zero wastage. Of course, that's impossible. Taps drip, temperamental gas lines cause overflow, so forth. But if the surplus drops below 5%, or really 10%, the landlord would start getting threats from the owner that they'd be out of a job. Which in turn led to the landlord and the duty manager putting pressure on us to serve as much head as possible, meaning dropping below that 95%, but worse than that, taking the beer that went in the drip tray and tipping it in a glass and topping it up. You know, the beer that's run down your sweaty hand as went over the side of the glass and into the tray. It wasn't long before I quit. Surprise, surprise. Morale was very low for that reason, and so many more. However, since then I've discovered it was in no way isolated to the pub I worked in. It's commonplace in Sam Smith's pub, and if it isn't in any given one, that landlord probably won't have his job for long. And the sheet kikers can't afford to jeopardize their livelihood. Here's an article in the Mirror for some corroboration. It is company policy to try to increase profits by giving the punters less than a full pint. We got a letter warning us. Mark, 43, and partner Julie, 50, were told he must have a 5% surplus on all the pub's drink stock when he started in December last year. The only way to achieve that was to serve 95% pints, the minimum allowed by trading standards, with the other 5% filled up with head. I know I'm about 12 hours late to this party, but it doesn't hurt to have yet another Google hit. I worked for the icing in the mall, same company as Claire's, while I was in college for about 2 months. I hated it there, mostly because I would work the entire shift alone, which meant no one to talk to, and if it was busy, no breaks of any kind. A couple of things stand out. 1. The training for piercing ears was a 30-minute video showing how to do it. I never practiced on anything before my first piercing. We simply put a dot on the customer's ear with a marker and then loaded the piercing gun and pushed the earring through, so the gun fired at the same rate your hand squeezes the trigger, if that makes sense. My first piercing was a 3-month-old baby. This is the age you are allowed to have your child's ears pierced. I freaked out mid-piercing and didn't push the earring all the way through. Luckily my manager was there to correct it, or who knows what would have happened. I was terrified. And 2. The time clock was done with millisecond DOS, and my manager would constantly leave early and come in the next day and change her time clock. After she left early one day, I was stuck on something when I was closing and called the assistant manager and asked for help. She was like, "Where's the manager?" I told her she left, and the next day the manager screamed at me for telling on her. Luckily I was only there for 2 months. Do not get your ears pierced there. Not to mention the poor sanitation. Sorry for the wall of text. I'm on mobile and cannot format properly. Probably a little late, but as it pertains to something everyone deals with, I hope it gets some attention. I work for mosquito abatement. We are a public district, so our paychecks, supplies, trucks, gas, everything is paid for by tax dollars. The main force against millions of mosquitoes and the diseases they carry is a group of burnt out college guys who don't give a shit about their job enough to really do it right. I'm arguably the best one at my location, but most guys, myself included, work at an astoundingly low rate. First of all, we basically kill time first, mosquitoes second. This comes from working in the heat all day in a truck with no AC. Then, if we find mosquitoes breeding, but it is difficult to get to / treat the water, some guys will turn a blind eye. If the water source is in a really thick and dense part of the forest, no way we are going back there to check it out. Also, we do a catch basin program that consists of dropping something down every catch basin we see. As you can probably imagine, that gets beyond tedious. On occasion, guys will straight up not do anything most of the day, dump out their briquettes out in a river, and just say they did a day's work. While we do a fair amount, it is no way a hard put effort to eliminate and properly control mosquitoes. Thankfully, the one part of the job everyone do properly, primarily because we are paid overtime to do it, and there's no real way to fuck around, is the night spray, which is what most people are primarily familiar with. So at least all of the adult mosquitoes are killed correctly. I work at a very popular lingerie store, rhymes with Victoria's Secret, and holy crap. For such a luxe company, we do some messed up shit. The stockroom consists of boxes upon boxes. What's in the faking box? Well, aside from the product itself, let's start with bugs such as cockroaches, spiders, crickets, etc. My advice? If you're trying anything on, shake it out first. If you decide to buy it, for the love of God wash it before you wear it. Our return policy is a shiz, right? You can return pretty much anything, within reason. People love to take advantage of that. And if a product isn't damaged, we just resell it obviously. But let's think about that for a second. If someone buys lingerie, they probably want it for a special day. One day. They aren't going to think twice about returning it after having used it if they are tight on cash. If a product isn't damaged or dirty, we kind of have to put it back on the sales floor. So, again, wash before you wear. If you are a man shopping for your so, and you have no idea what you want, we will probably sell you something worth our while. If the buyer is ready to drop big bucks, we are more than ready to pick them up. No, we do not make commission, but the company has started tracking each employee's sales. The more we sell per hour, the better we look. Bragging rights, yo point so, yeah, those are the 3 top things I can think of. If you have any questions about Victoria's Secret, I'd love to answer them. Phone salesman at a major carrier. Well, a retailer of a major carrier. Don't buy your phone at a phone store. Go to Best Buy. When we sell you one, with a 2-year agreement, you get charged a fee with the purchase of your phone. Think contract initiation fee, usually around $15. Then on your next bill, there's a charge for $30 as an upgrade fee as well. Never buy the protection plan that's upfront. We'll go on and on about how much money you can save, and how the replacement cost is less than the monthly insurance, but it isn't. But each time we sell it, we make 6 to 10 bucks. And on the 40 to 60 phones I sell per month, if 40% quota buy it, that's a substantial amount of money. Buy all of your accessories online. The difference in price is more than offset by having to wait a couple days to get it in the mail. Now we can discount. I do have that liberty, but really it all comes down to the manager. Some need to review everything the customer is buying and decide what can be discounted and by how much, but my manager just gives me the codes that allow me to discount at my leisure. Though I can't speak for the rest of the company, if you buy anything from me, I will waive any and all fees within my power. Plus I heavily discount my accessories. You don't even have to have a discount on your bill. I'll take your word for it. Please pay your bills online or over the phone. If you come in to pay your bill with a credit card, the screen I process the payment of is the same screen you would use at home to pay your bill. Don't make me do it. One thing that's never bothered me is customer service. I don't care how many questions you have, I will answer all of them to the best of my ability. My co-workers on the other hand, go out of their way to push customers out who aren't buying anything. I can go on and on for hours. Half rant, half confession. That they resold old concrete. I don't drive for them anymore, but as far as I know they still do this. What old means, every load of concrete mixed is supposed to be all fresh ingredients. Because there is a chemical reaction when water and cement are mixed, the mixture starts to heat up. This is why the mixer trucks have the drums turning all the time. After delivery, any extra concrete is supposed to be dumped because it's getting really hot by then and is not reusable. Typically it's dumped into large block forms that are around 3 foot x 3 x 5 or so and used for barriers. Back at the concrete plant. Dishonest companies like the one I drove for reuse the old hot concrete in the trucks and resell it to the next unsuspecting customer. So say the first customer ordered 2 yards of concrete but only used 1.5 yards. So there's a half yard left on the truck and it's pretty hot by the time you're back at the concrete plant. Instead of dumping it, it's kept on the truck and the next customer wants 1 yard. He gets the half yard of old hot concrete with a half yard of new mixed in. Now that old hot concrete reacts with the new and makes it hotter than it should be, and it'll harden a lot faster than it should too, leaving the next customer less time to work it before it hardens. Sometimes a lot of extra water needs to be mixed in at the job site to keep it from hardening too fast, and that weakens the whole batch considerably. It's a dishonest and downright evil practice that makes a lot of extra money for the concrete mixer company and royally screws over customers, especially the home ER winners who don't know how to recognize it and work fast enough to finish the stuff before it hardens prematurely. Oh, I've got a good one. I worked for Best Buy a few years back and saw 2 things that were so heinously unconscionable that I quit after 3 weeks. My job was in the computer section, mostly printers. For the first 2 weeks I had to shadow this salesman, Bob, who had been there a few years. So one day this older gentleman comes in and tells Bob that his computer was having trouble communicating with his printer. Bob immediately asks him if he's using a surge protector. The guy says no, he isn't. Bob says, well, there's your problem right there. If it's not on a surge protector, it probably got hit by lightning or a power surge, and that's why it can't communicate with your computer. Bob hands the guy a $60 gold-plated surge protector, the most expensive one we have. "This should help fix your problem," says Bob. The guy thanks him and walks to the front. Bob turns to me and says proudly, "See." Guy comes to me with a printer problem. I don't know what's wrong. Snaps fingers. Sell him a surge protector. I'm staring at this guy in disbelief, and I ask to use the bathroom. No way I'm having this. I caught up to the old guy, who was thankfully still in line, and said, "Hey, I just want to tell you, you do not need to buy that. It won't do anything to fix your problem. You need to call your printer brand's tech support number and ask them to help you diagnose your problem. Just don't buy this." I have no idea why that guy told you to buy it, but he has no clue what he's talking about. The old man thanked me and walked out. The second thing was the kicker. A couple comes in with two kids, looking for a new computer, and they don't look like they have a lot of money. They end up talking to Bob. They say all they need is something they can use to browse the internet, and a word processor for their kids' homework. If there was ever an instance where a family needed the most inexpensive computer in the store, it would be this one. But Bob's a salesman, working on a kind of indirect commission. So he convinces the couple they need a $1,400 PC with way more power than they will ever need, and a $380 printer that is nicer than mine, and I'm a photographer. But that's not the faked up part. Bob tells the couple that he's going to get the computer out of the back, and that he will meet them up front. We get a cart, load up the computer, monitor, and printer in the back warehouse, and push the cart back out to the aisles. Then Bob turns to me and says, "Now, if the customers aren't with you at this point, you can go ahead and pick out some accessories they will need and throw them in the cart." I'm stunned at this point, with a look of astonishment and incredulity on my face. He starts going through the aisles and literally putting things the couple didn't ask for into their cart. Extra printer ink, they'll need some of that. Go ahead and get two. Some regular paper and a pack of photo paper. Stack of blank CDs. Dust cover, they'll want one of those. Mousepad, gold-plated printer cable, they need that. Canned air to dust off the keyboard. A surge protector obviously. I could not believe what I was seeing. This went way beyond salesmanship and just strode brazenly over that line into straight up illegal territory. He probably put $200 worth of shit into this poor couple's cart without telling them, and without them even knowing he was doing it. I was so horrified that I just said, "I'm sorry, but I'm clearly not cut out for this. You not only just sold that couple a computer they did not need, but you are now getting them to buy items they aren't even aware they are buying. I don't care whether you think this is legal or not. If Best Buy condones this in any way, then there's no way I'm gonna be able to work here." And I walked out right then and there, but not before finding the couple and telling them what the guy was doing. I didn't get to see what happened after that, but hopefully they talked to a store manager and got that guy fired. Used to work at McDonald's. If you ever buy a beef burger and it's fresh, the meat is not fully cooked. Reg meat, 10:1, patties, pounds, comes out of a freezer, is placed 6 to 12 at a time on a flat grill, and the worker presses 2 buttons for a top grill to come down and cook it. For a measly 50 seconds. 1. If it is placed immediately on a bun, it will be pink on the inside and bleeding. 2. If it is placed in the warming tray, it will fully cook, as long as it sits in there for at least 3 to 5 minutes. This meat is used for single, double, triple, regular and cheeseburgers, Big Macs, and double Big Macs. The quarter meat, 1:4, is cooked for, if I remember correctly, 320. Generally this cooks fully, but if there was a Russian quarter meat was in demand, the grill cooled quickly, causing pink meat. The Angus 3:1 meat was cooked for well over 5 o'clock and always came out bleeding, but was generally due to the fact that it was thick. Regardless of the bleeding, it was always thoroughly cooked. The chicken patties always came fully cooked, as well as juniors, strips, and nuggets. The fish was spotty at best for freshness. When the filet-o-fish bun was steamed, the steamer emitted a large plume of steam we called the McFacial. Your apple pie could have been cooked 12 hours before you got it, as well as muffins. The onions have no flavor because they were dehydrated and rehydrated. Mac sauce is simply Thousand Island dressing with more mayo in it. The ice machine at the restaurant I worked at was situated in a spot where the overspray from the dishwashing sink would occasionally flutter into the ice tray. Almost no one, including team leaders, managers, and even crew trainers, washed their hands regularly. The grilled chicken is literally no better for you, since the grill is saturated in a thin butter mixture before and during the cooking of the breast. And we used a heat activated acid to clean the grill's bonus LPT. I do not eat fast food beef anymore due to my working there. Number of patties on grill is greatly dependent on skill of worker behind the grill. Worked at No Frills as a produce clerk as well. The only thing that's not that great is the fact that we would spend roughly 2 hours upon a grape shipment arrival sorting through the grape bundles to remove moldy, rotten, and spider infested grapes. Yup, cobwebs in grape bags. No one will probably see this, but I'll post it anyways. I used to work at this place in Northern Virginia, or at least what people in Richmond and Norfolk consider Nova. Our managers would like you to think that it's safe for your children, but it's far from it. Maybe it was back when it first opened over 18 years ago, but now it's just run down and dirty. There's an area called soft play that requires socks on at all times because children piss, shit, and vomit in there. There's a laser tag arena where 75% of the guns didn't properly work. One kid came up to me going, "I got no points. What happened?" Our go-karts were typically Mac jibbered into working. The worst was when I was operating our first Ferris wheel. I loaded it up properly by distributing the weight and everything seemed to be going perfectly. When I went to stop the attraction, the ride continued to go faster. My lead was able to offload the children and my GM blamed me for the mistake. He then sent me home for the rest of the day. A week later, I'm talking to one of the maintenance guys who I was friendly with. I saw that a coworker was loading children onto the Ferris wheel, so I go, "I thought they stopped operating that ride." He told me that the machine's brakes failed on one of our coworkers. He didn't know that it was me. What's worse is that our managers knew the brakes were bad. I almost injured 6 children because those cheap fakers didn't want to pay to replace the brakes. They also refused to replace the gaskets in our gas tanks, so while filling up the go-karts the employee would be drenched in gasoline. For 3 months straight, everything from the neckline of my shirt to my socks were soaked in gasoline. 2 of our managers were the worst people that I've the luck to work under. One was an alcoholic because his wife left him and his children didn't want anything to do with him. He would frequently come in intoxicated or go out behind the main building with an assistant manager and drink with him. Our general manager was just an asshole. He got his undergrad in pre-law or some shit like that, so he thought he always knew best. When I put in my 3 weeks, before I was supposed to go back to college, he called me lazy for wanting a week off to pack up and say goodbye to family members. He then said that I gave him less than a 2 weeks notice and refused to give me a reference on any other job I was applying for. Management also somehow got away with paying the 16-year-old $6.75 an hour, while the minimum wage was $7.25. I don't know how they got away with it, but they did. They'd also schedule you for 8-hour days, but refuse to give you breaks, because we both know you'll be told to leave before the 5-hour mark. Also a few times some high school student called out of work, and I got forced to work a double. They wouldn't let me take a break. Now I don't mind working a lot, but when it was 102 outside, and you're making me work while wearing a goddamn Santa hat, I would have appreciated 15 minutes cooling off in the break room. PC World UK. When I worked there a number of months ago, before I left we routinely lied to customers. We told them that we offered the best deals on antivirus or whatever and often were told to make up a high price, then offer it at the regular price and pretend it was a deal. We took price labels off certain shelves to assist in these lies. We took display products and resealed them with tape from the warehouse to sell them as new. We were sent away on countless training exercises where we were lied to about products to make us believe that we were selling genuinely good products. I remember we were used this line to help the computer N00BS sell AMD that Intel PCs with Windows 8 cannot run Android apps on them. This fell apart with the new range of Android/Windows hybrid laptops, most running on Intel. We had a score sheet in our intranet that showed us the profit margins of each individual product. I found numerous lies in this, as I was once told by my manager to convince a business sale who wanted 90 max for a school he worked with to sell a £1,000 laptop for £800. When I checked the sheet, it was saying that these laptops were bought at £940, but the manager told me that it was not an issue for some reason. We also went on a training exercise in which the rep told us that PC World had a contract with Disorganization that allowed us to buy each individual pack of batteries at just 1p, a huge markup, when they are sold for 3.99. When I checked the sheet, they were apparently £2. Don't believe a word the salesman tells you. I have sold Windows antivirus software to countless fools buying Android tablets, and friends of mine boasted selling the same incompatible software on an iPad. Don't buy sheet from PC World or Currys. Also, our ultimate gaming machine in our store was running an i5 3330 with Nvidia 640. Not exactly the ultimate machine we sold it as. Best thing about it was the upgradable case, essentially meaning the only computer in store with a case that opens. Probably too late for this thread, but I have to get this out there. I work in it for a major Fortune 500 company. I worked for a few years in their global headquarters as the help desk, specifically for the top echelon of employee, CEO, CFO, CIO, etc. All of them have the same password as when I left 2 years ago to be a developer. I know this because the list of passwords was handed to me by the guy who I replaced, who probably got them handed to him by his predecessor. The thing is, I don't even think that they know how awful this could be. Imagine if someone, not me, but someone with a grudge of some kind, got a hold of that information. These are the very same passwords that would be used to access critical financial, legal, and for that matter personal information regarding the company and or themselves. They all demand that we reset our passwords every 90 days. Wisely, I might add, but they don't hold themselves to the same standard. Which is crazy. The craziest thing is, I don't think any of them think it is even a big deal. And the IT team is such pussies that they don't want to enforce the rules for these individuals because they don't want to lock them out of their account, because they don't know how to change their damn email password on their iPhone. It frustrates me. TLDR, I work for a big company and know the CEO and all his peers' passwords for everything. And they haven't changed in living memory. Former health insurance company employee. I suppose the people who bash health insurance companies as the most evil around would not want you to know this. The depiction of all insurance companies as giant, blood-sucking, claim-denying machines is absolutely incorrect. In our organization, 92% of claims were processed and paid within 14 days of receipt. The other 8% were denied. Of those that were denied, over 80% were denied for valid reasons. For example, patient was on an HMO and did not get a referral. Or patient had Botox injections in their underarms for excessive sweating, but did not get that procedure pre-approved. It costs thousands of dollars for each shot and only indicated in specific situations, so it is very reasonable to require pre-approval. Other denial reasons such as a doctor billing for a cholesterol test, but only including a diagnosis code of broken ankle. So in the end, there were a small amount of claims that got denied in error, such as computer or claims processor mistake 99/100th times. Those mistakes get caught either by a quality team or when the patient/doctor called us up to bring it to our attention. I'm not aware of a single situation during my 12 years when anyone denied a claim for spite or because we don't want to pay. That type of mentality simply does not exist. There is so much oversight and penalties involved in processing a claim incorrectly. There is absolutely no motivation to deny a claim without a valid reason. First of all, most people get their insurance from their employer, and most are mid to large size employers, and they are typically self-insured. What that means is, if you work for Apple and have Sinner insurance, Apple pays the medical bills. They simply pay Sinner to answer the phones, process the claims, mail the cards, do all the administrative work, etc. So when you had that gallbladder surgery and beached about your $500 copay, and that Sinner should burn in hell, remember, Apple established that copay, and Apple paid $50,000 to the hospital for that surgery. So in most cases, the insurance company has no reason to deny claims willy-nilly. They must follow the rules of the plan, as outlined by the employer. In fact, we would face penalties from those employers if we denied a claim in error. In fact, we had entire departments of people whose only job was to review denied claims to see if they were denied in error. If they were immediately reprocessed, and the claims processor got a reprimand. Enough of those, and they would be let go. I also worked with a team of nurses, over 3 dozen, whose only job was to call the parents of pediatric patients who were dying of cancer to see how they were doing, and make sure they were getting their treatment. There was no motivation from that department, which probably costs the company over $5 million a year, other than to make sure the kids were doing okay. Yes, if they get people to take their meds on time, they will get sick less and use the insurance less. I once got a $1,000 award because I located a flaw in the claims system that was denying claims incorrectly. Are there horror stories? Sure. The newborn who was denied health insurance because being born was a pre-existing condition. The kid who was denied a heart transplant because of, well, who knows. The big problem here is not that insurance companies are profit machines. In fact, at 4-5%, their profit margins are on the low end when compared to other industries. Having said that, health insurance should not be based around a profit margin, but it is the cost of care that is a primary cause of our crisis, not the fact that there are private health insurance companies. Providers who take Medicare and get paid pennies on the dollar only stay in business because they also get higher payments from private insurance companies. If everyone was put on Medicare, the reimbursements would not be enough to keep them in business. Again, cost of care is a problem. If that was brought down, a Medicare for all would be a great system. I work for HOAs. If you live in an HOA, they are faking you. Somehow, someway, they are faking you. I've seen it all. I've seen a board use HOMIAWA funds to buy a property lawyer to fight against a homeless shelter going up nearby, and then reclassify the funds as miscellaneous legal in a special executive session meeting not open to HOMIAWANers. I've seen people stuck with $250 violations for property issues that were corrected well within the time frame provided. I've seen people given a week to replace their entire lawn or face a $250 violation fine. I've seen people paint their house, be told it was the wrong color by 2 shades of white, and then be forced to pay for power washing and repainting. How else are they going to spend hundreds of dollars a month in HOMIAWA funds for food and accommodations? Renting out a Coco's banquet room and having dinner is a personal favorite I've seen for the monthly board meetings. They can get away with it because the board passes the blame the property management company IES, and the property management company turns around and pawns the blame right back off on the board until people get frustrated. Then they either pay the fine or leave it on their account until they sell the house, and then they settle it in escrow. Nothing goes unpaid unless you flee your HOA debt as fervently as you'd flee any other debt collector out to kneecap you, and even then, some HOAs hire private investigators to get the dirt on you and figure out a wage garnishment. If you're fortunate enough to have a lien placed on your property and be in danger of foreclosure, often over less than $1,000, sometimes under $500, then you get to deal with the board-hired management company kickback attorney, which sucks because your credit's going to be screwed. But isn't so bad, because at least they answer voicemail and emails. If you live in an HOA, pay someone to set your house on fire, then move. Seriously, point at it. Clarified the back and forth blame game a bit further. We destroy so many prescription drugs that a doctor may discontinue for the patient, even if the families are paying a ton of money for this medication. Let's say this medication is oxycodone, 90 tabs, no insurance, so the family is paying hundreds of dollars for this medication. Dr. D sees it, prescribes a new pain med, low tab, so we destroy all the oxycodone, and a week later get a new script to D/C. The law tab and start the oxycodone again. Now the family is paying even more money because we got rid of the original oxy pills. So much medication gets wasted because of this process. I know it's the legal thing, but damn, I feel bad for families that have to fork out that money. Another thing, management doesn't give a fuck about you or your mom that's in a home. They just want to fill the rooms. Even if your family member is not fit for our facility, they earn an extra $500 to $1,000 for your mom moving in. And then a week or two later, they have to move out because she left the building on her own. Flight risk. Guess what? They have no issues with kicking her out a day later or charging you extra to make sure stuff that is already burnt out, to babysit your mom overnight, to make sure she doesn't leave again. All the while, they still get to keep the money they made on her moving in. Awesome, right? So glad to be leaving in 2 weeks. Anything with sauce on it at KFC, and probably all fast food, is old. BBW chicken sandwich? That chicken started life as regular fried chicken and sat out for a few hours, didn't get sold, so the meat got deboned and put in a sandwich. That makes it new food, which gives it a new shelf life. At the end of every day, all the unsold chicken is deboned and either put in the fridge or the freezer, so they can make things like chicken pot pies the next day. There's a balance of how busy a KFC should be for you to go to it. If it's too busy, then people don't have time to change or filter the oil. If it's not busy enough, then they don't have enough cook-on staff to do it / get lazy. Old oil gets nasty and is bad for you. Also, if you don't maintain the pressure cookers the original recipe is made in, the oil starts cooling too fast while cooking or doesn't get hot enough, and some of the chicken ends up undercooked. Some cooks are smart enough to notice this and not send out undercooked chicken. Many aren't. I worked at a really busy KFC. We were supposed to filter the oil in the pressure cookers twice a day. We did it once. You were supposed to stir it between every use. We did it every 3 or 4 times. One day I went in to work at a very slow KFC, probably one of the slowest out there, and they filtered their pressure cookers about once a week and never stirred them. They actually had to reduce the amount of chicken they cooked at once because some of it would come out near or otherwise. Some people would put oil from the fryer in with the gravy mix. They did this by using a plastic scoop in 500-degree oil. It was not meant for use in high temperatures. Visa and Wells Fargo call centers in Earth City, Missouri hire all their staff from temp agencies, and they have full access to all of your financial info and can do anything they'd be brave enough to do with it. At Wells Fargo, we had you and your spouse's address, home value, and every piece of info regarding your property and your home buying history, every credit card, bank account, car loan, etc., and the complete full info on each, including numbers, dates, limits, everything. Someone could literally pretend to be you because they could access every tiny piece of info about you, and some that you probably don't even know. So pretty much any call center that pertains to your money accounts, whether loans or credit, those people have full access to your info and can use your account / card or get their own at any time. Hair salons. Everyone goes to the same type of beauty school, so paying $100 for a haircut isn't guaranteeing you a good cut. It takes a certain talent, and you can still pass and not have a feel for what you're doing and never be able to give a good cut. It's literally a crapshoot every time you walk into a salon when you don't know a stylist or how good they are. So just because you go to salon expensive versus great clips doesn't mean you're going to get a good haircut. They pay about $5.00 or less for a bottle of hair color, and the $80.00 or whatever you pay is basically paying them to slap it on your head for you. The color they use really isn't any better than some you can buy at a regular store. I work as an auditor. Doesn't matter what company or where, it's all the same. For those of you who don't know, an auditor basically comes in to check if a company's accounting is up to scratch and they're not trying to pull an errand. Most of the people doing the field work are very young and inexperienced, either straight out of university or in some cases straight out of school. Many don't have a relevant degree background. Clients think we are accounting experts. Well, that's just the senior people. The people actually doing most of the work are generally much less informed. We show up to perform procedures we have no clue about, ask questions we have no clue about, and mostly just have previous years, as it's done annually, work to guide us. We blindly do our ticking and move on. There is very little challenging of the information we are given. We just take it as it is. All the junior staff hate their jobs and spend most of their breaks talking about what they'll do when they leave. These are not idle threats. Most people do leave and the staff turnover rate is massive. As such, there is very little cumulative knowledge about the clients, except at the more senior level, but that rarely filters down into the people who are doing the field work, and it's constantly a case of I have no idea what I'm doing at the client site. Although the companies in this field do a good job of making it seem like a desirable grad role, once you get in you realize how crap it is and how completely unmotivated everyone is, except for some of the senior people. Yet you go through the motions and then get out to a better job as soon as possible. Point: proper documentation of audit work. Very key. Nope, not really. I have little to no clue what half the stuff is that I'm doing or what those documents are for. I took a weekend job for extra cash several years back as a small systems hardware repairer for a large electronic refurbishing company. It was probably the most shady company I ever worked for. Cell phones, jewelry, toddler toys, and video game systems were the main areas of repair as well as of the manufacturer's products. Walmart, Toys R Us, etc. would send broken hardware to us to fix under an insurance policy that most of you have probably paid for or been asked to pay for when buying any electronic equipment. Here is examples of why you should never take this added insurance. Apart from the manufacturer already warrantying the hardware for critical failures, parts for all electronics were bought illegally from overseas reverse engineering companies who would illegally hack the hardware, reverse engineer it, then make replacements parts for pennies on the dollar when a piece of hardware came into the company. Senior inspectors would assess the damage and see if the hardware was worth repairing. If it wasn't, the customer got a new piece of hardware, such as a news box for example. These gaming systems / cell phones / etc. point were not new, even though the company stated that they were. They were made with the illegal parts we paid overseas companies to make. Point: the packaging, trademark decal stickers, VIN number stickers, etc. were all printed by a few old ladies in the administrative office, then handed to us. Having a PSP repaired and got a notice that you got a new system? Nope. It's about $3 worth of illegal parts and you most likely have the same VIN number that thousands of other PSPs have on them. The same VIN number was reused. We just printed sheets of the barcodes with the same numbers. Box systems had very bad quality ratings. Our basis for quality was that the system would work for at least 90 days after repair. If it did, and it messed up again, the customer would need to have it repaired again. Our ROD for this box were common issues, and a reflow of the motherboard would be needed to fix this. Very rarely does this work, based on the nature of why this is caused in those box, and what reflowing is. When we reflowed boards, thermal paste was too expensive to buy, so we would literally put the processor and GPU on the heatsink. Bare metal. This is bad. Point: to get around having illegal parts made, we never kept much of the illegal parts in stock, and it was a duty I had, while moving up in the company, to order the illegal parts on a daily basis. We did, however, for auditing purposes, keep a caged warehouse area in the repair center with parts we legitimately bought from the manufacturer. These parts were never used, they were just there for show. We weren't allowed to touch them. Instead we used the shitty made parts. Jewelry would often come in for repair. We had a whole center for it, and expensive jewelry at that. Let's just say that if you were missing a gold / silver link in a watch, it probably wasn't gold or silver that we replaced it with. Additionally, any jewels that came with the jewelry had a notion of being replaced with less quality jewels. Anything that was sent with the hardware that wasn't listed on the support sheet, games, power cords, chargers, hard drives, were automatically kept by the company and shipped with other devices where these accessories were requested to buy. Or, they were refurbished, basically packaged back into a box without CAT testing and sent back to resellers to put on the shelves or on their online stores. The company was making money by taking items from their very customers and reselling them. Most manufacturers were unaware of the illegal parts and shady operations we were dealing with fixing their things, and every couple of months or so a manufacturer would hold meetings with the company to understand defects of their hardware, what the most issues were coming from, how they could help design better hardware that was easier for technicians to repair with more test points, etc. I sat in a few of these meetings, particularly those that dealt with Gamma Boys and PSPs, where Nintendo and Sony engineers would come in and speak with us. We would use this to try and pry secrets and learn how the hardware worked. The company would then use this information to aid their overseas engineers in reverse engineering the hardware and redeveloping it to be sent back to us for cheaper for certain repairs, such as LCD screens and such, that were expensive for us to repair. We had been given instruction to spill coke or otherwise water damage the device and ship it back to the customer. This is because our insurance policy didn't cover water damage in hardware, and therefore the company would not have to pay for the repair and charge the customer for the repair instead of a claim on the insurance. Point: I did well at the company for a weekend job. I was promoted multiple times and worked in multiple different areas during my time there, which let me see the ins and outs of the company. My advice: only place claims on the manufacturer's warranties and never buy the added insurance for electronic devices at any store for anything. I work for a marketing and communications research firm. We tell you that we can boost your business local presence using specialized and field-specific sales and marketing techniques. In reality, we just have a few unpaid interns make a few hundred fake social media / social review everything from Facebook to Yelp every day, and another few give you mediocre reviews from those accounts. Why mediocre reviews, you may ask? Well, if we got your business off the ground too fast, you wouldn't need us anymore. But don't worry, we know you have goals for your company. So if you're willing to sign a 1-year contract with us for a lower monthly rate, made up for in the upgrade fee and mandatory cancellation fee for your original contract, and a no cancellation clause until after 6 months, at which point you'll be charged to cancel, we'll give you the premium package. The premium package will involve myself, or, if you're really special, my boss, meeting with you a couple times a month and feeding you the same bullshit spiel we feed to everyone else on how to increase your company's passion, presence, and productivity. Point: the average day for me involves sitting at home, smoking a bunch of weed, and forwarding emails to the head honchos. Occasionally, I throw on a suit and meet with investors, clients, board members. I'm just a dancing monkey keeping the people happy, while my bosses do all the unethical shit. I used to work at an HRO, human resources outsourcing company. Basically, if your employer doesn't want to handle certain parts of human resources like managing group health insurance plans and whatnot, then they hire us to do it for them. Most of the people who contacted us had no idea that we weren't an arm of their employer. A lot of shady shit went on there, but I think the one they would least like people to know, and confirms a lot of our customer suspicions, is about the IVR. The interactive voice response system, the robot that answers your call and ostensibly tries to direct you to the correct department. Point: here's the thing, our company designed the IVR to be intentionally frustrating. The people working in the call center have had very little training, are working on out-of-date and often barely functional equipment, and are working with often unreasonable restrictions from our clients. For instance, a certain telecom giant that will remain nameless mandated that we not put callers on hold for more than 30 seconds per day. Each person working in the call center had a daily allowance of 30 seconds of hold time, and going over that could cost you your job. The company knew that these people were going to fuck up, so they designed the IVR in such a way that it was supposed to be so frustrating that you hung up before you ever reached one of our employees, because in our metrics any caller that hangs up in the IVR is recorded as issue resolved by IVR. We lie to the client that the robot fixed their problem and didn't have to worry about one of our employees faking things up bad enough for the caller to complain. You know those service plans we ask you about? I'm sure you do. The common misconception is that they don't work, or they are a waste of time. For the most part they work perfectly fine. I myself don't deal with them other than for TVs, because to hell with life if the TV doesn't work when I'm gaming, but in terms of offering them, I'm ordered to offer them and tell you yes to whatever you say, or be fired, on phones, on computers, on games. Yeah, we can insure your disk in case it gets scratched. Good luck with that doing anything to you while the plan exists. And on everything. Hint, every service plan doesn't protect you if it touches water. It doesn't matter if it tells you that it does. It doesn't. Examples that will never be covered but will be discovered. Your computer monitor once had water used to wash the screen. No, your mouse once had a drip of water on it and the paint looks worn off because of that. No, your cell phone had saliva used to clean the screen once and has an acidic substance. No, your water sprinkler is wet. No, serious, your frisbee is wet. No, pretty much anything that is touched by any type of water, we will find it out at the service center and we will not cover it. As an FYI, it might be best you realize that I've worked at a very large number of places. Good luck ever getting past the water predicament. I wish I would have seen this thread sooner. This is a huge issue where I live. I live in Florida, which has a massive population of elderly people. So a lot of people who have no education or can't find a good job become CNAs. So, most of the assisted living facilities here are run by people who, the majority of, lack common sense. Where my fiance currently works, there are major sanitary and life-threatening issues. To start, each resident is assigned one towel for each CNA to clean their body with every day. There haven't been enough towels to clean each resident since he started there about a year ago. There are never enough briefs for the residents ever, so they use the chucks that protect the bed. The nurses over-medicate each resident, which causes them to deteriorate over time. When a resident has a bed sore, which, in a good facility, wouldn't even occur unless they are brought from the hospital with it, it usually ends up killing them. Quite often, residents aren't showered for as long as 10 days. I could go on for hours. The reason it is like this is because when the state comes in to rate the facility, they put it up to code. When they're gone, they neglect the residents. The facility my fiance works at is rated a 5-star facility point, and to top it all off, the CNAs, who clean the facility, pass medicine, feed the residents, take the trash out, take complete care of the residents, monitor the residents' health, and do all the paperwork, only get paid $9 an hour. Meat department in a regional supermarket chain. They'll hire anyone, even with no prior experience to handling food. Good permit? PFFT. They won't ask for it. The health inspector, personal buddy of the store manager and supervisor of the meat department, passes every time. They pay more base minimum for employees to apply here and not to our competitors. I started at $9 hour and left within a year making almost $11 hour. The chicken is really low grade sheet that is close to being expired. Drop a drumstick or ham hock while restocking the displays. Brush it off and put it back in the display. I also was moved to bakery there for not coming in on my day off, although I was 60 miles away with family at the beach. Worked a conveyor making tortillas on a machine almost as old as me that broke down habitually at least twice a night. So much dust and crap went into your tortillas, I'm not surprised we haven't been sued. The machine was cleaned once a week. The dough could be thrown around, dropped as we pressed into the mixer, and we will still place it onto a conveyor. There was a compressed air machine that had a lot of repairs done to it with chains, weights, and handles. I was luckily there when the top blew off, and a good amount of C's of air escaped to blow off the hatch and cause a loud pop. I should post photos. http://i60.tinipic.com/fkbsbs.jpg. It's the only still left in my camera roll. I did my part and asked for the machine to be repaired or at least replaced. Once I became invested, they found a B.S reason to fire me. Seems they also pay everyone to stay quiet and never speak up about anything around them. I used to work for a contractor company who was under contract with an airline, whose hub is Maya. I worked here in Maya. I was in the baggage service area, where you go to scream if your bag doesn't arrive, or arrives broken. It was horrifying. When you ask why didn't my bag make it, you're going to get one of two responses: the truth, "I don't know why," or any bullshit we can come up with on the spot. The system used only arriving scanning information on the bags, so if your bag stays behind, it doesn't exist in the locator system. Also, on domestic flights, the only damage covered would be a hole that penetrates through one side of the bag, or a tear to the main lifting handle, usually on top, not the pull handle. We offered replacement bags with a price tag of $350, so some people were pleased. As a former supervisor, I know they cost only $27.50. Also, when you ask for any time estimates to any associate, that is how much longer for the bags to come out from the plane, the number comes out of his as announcements saying that the crew is having trouble opening the hatch to get bags out of the plane can safely be translated into "we are short on staff and the crew is loading another plane, and that's why you don't have your bags." I've seen bag numbers switched with different passengers' names going to different locations. Just horrible shit that you don't want to happen when you're going on vacation. And since it was here in Miami, a lot of people go on cruises. Sorry, but oops, or any other airline won't really care. We will just forward the bag to the closest airport near where your cruise stops and hope you get it. Also, the communication between airports is horrible. As you expect, all your shit gets thrown around onto the plane, off the plane, onto trucks, off trucks, and onto the carousels. Sometimes people are forced to put their carry-ons in the back with all other luggage. This sucks because they have a non-scannable tag, tend to get lost, and hold your most valuable possessions for the trip, of which only your clothing is covered. Not your laptop, or Alex, or passport, or money, or the deed to your house. Yes, people are dumb enough to leave them inside. Oh, and my manager was charged with ballot fraud and still hired. Sorry that my post is so disorganized. I just wrote down stuff as it came to me. Used to work across a few branches of a major bank when I was a student. What a riot. Promotions were based almost entirely on salesmanship, how many potential credit cards, loans etc. you could refer to a specialist and convert into sales, rather than overall merit or capability. So, many of the managers talked a good game, but actually knew very little about banking or managing people. Many were terrifyingly stupid and just spoke total bullshit to customers when asked difficult questions. As a result, there was an almost constant process of managers being demoted, relocated, replaced etc. The policies and internal strategies of the bank were quite often shockingly self-serving, most starting from the basic idea that junior staff and customers were brainless idiots who could be easily manipulated without realizing it. Getting a behind-the-scenes look at how they came up with their ad campaigns and where they got the stats for claims they made in adverts etc. also taught me that they'd bend the truth as far as it could go and pass it off as uncontested fact. On top of that, the place was full of scandal, with more affairs and weird behavior going on than I care to remember. One plus side for you guys though, most staff, even lowly tellers, are authorized to make discretionary payments to customers who complain about things enough, however minor the complaint, and if the customer is legally in the wrong. There was a phase when we were having to give out £20/£30 credits, like they were peanuts. To put this in perspective, I'm now a lawyer at a city firm, and so I'm no stranger to the dark side of corporate culture. However, I'm still shocked by how chaotic that bank was, behind the scenes. Okay, so I'll start this off with I previously worked for Lowe's. I worked in all sorts of departments, but because I feel like it, I'm going to focus on assembled items, because I spent 2 years assembling things, and not too many people know much about it. Check your sheet for washers. Seriously, they probably threw them away to save time. If your grill was scratched, we fixed it with spray paint. Yep, you read that correctly. Normally I kept extra parts around, but if the salespeople insisted on speed, spray paint was easier. Your lawnmower was tested before you got it. The riding lawnmowers can do wheelies and donuts pretty well. All of them can. Sure, we can get spare parts for you, and we can do it for free. Are we going to? Probably not. That grill you returned because something wasn't right doesn't get fixed and sold. It's destroyed. Too much risk. Want to use a grill for the weekend, but don't need it after that? No problem. Buy it, use it and return it. Nobody really cares that much. Point this now blower you just bought in January was assembled in September and has been knocked around in the warehouse since. It was never started at the store to ensure that it works. Same goes with push mowers. The tire pressure in your wheelbarrow probably wasn't right in the first place. The compressors we got were shit and nobody had time to double check things that will take an hour to get assembled. Actually means I hope to sheet someone is here to put this together. I have no idea what I'm doing. If nobody is here, I, the salesperson, will be putting this together myself. The stuff sitting outside probably isn't all of the stock that is left, but they want you to take it before it looks worse. Another week outside and it will start rusting and we'll have to throw it away or spray paint it. Your grill wasn't damaged when it came in. It was dropped by the salesperson when they were bringing it out to you. The assembly guys check everything for damages before they put it together. Any damages incurred afterwards. We didn't bother assembling anything that was damaged. It was set aside until replacement parts came in. Point. If you bring in a tire to get fixed from your riding lawnmower, we will fill it with slime and air it up. No more, no less. Texas pizza franchise here. Oh boy, the list goes on. The fresh chopped spinach we use comes to us frozen in big as blocks that, once thawed, sit in the walk-in refrigerator for a month or so. Point. The bread we use for sandwiches has a shelf life of 365 days. Point. It costs us about 10 cents to fill up your soda you bought $4.2.25 are $17. Pizzas cost about $3 to make, labor included. Point. Each slice of our stromboli is 450 calories. There's 6 slices per stromboli, which typically is eaten by just one person. The chemicals that clean your plates / cups / forks in our dishwasher ran out long ago and won't be replaced by the owner. So yeah, just hot water is sprayed on everything and is then called clean. None of your $2.50 delivery charge goes to the delivery driver. It pays for the store's insurance for lawsuits if we get in an accident and decide to sue. The chemicals in the sanitized we use on the tables contains a heavy dose of bleach. If you drop your pizza slice on the table, don't eat it. 5 seconds is too long. Point. The owner only hires men for delivery jobs. All the girls who are hired are young, 16 to 25, and work in the store their whole shift with the owner. Point. We are instructed to never check kids for alcohol. We make a sheetload of profit on beer, and if a 16-year-old wants to contribute to that, go right ahead. Point. I'd go on, but I'd never stop writing. I sterilize surgical instruments at a major American metropolitan hospital that consistently ranks highly in US News World Report's best hospitals list. Without going into excessive detail, sterilizing surgical instruments generally takes 3 to 4 hours to do properly. Surgeries are routinely scheduled one after the other that require the same set or sets of instruments, or they are scheduled in such a way that a certain set of instruments is being used in one surgery and also needs to be ready for a different surgery shortly after. This means that instead of the 3 to 4 hours we need to properly clean and sterilize them, we are often given only 15 to 20 minutes. Alternate sterilization processes which are intended for emergency situations only are instead used regularly with complete foreknowledge that the surgery schedule does not allow for the needed time to properly sterilize things. There is scheduling software which is used that will give a red flag if instruments are being double booked or scheduled without enough time between surgeries. These warnings are ignored, and the surgeries are scheduled regardless on a daily basis. This is not limited to the hospital I work at, as I've seen it at other hospitals, and have spoken with workers at still more hospitals. In our position, we can only do what we are told, because there are legitimate emergencies. We aren't doctors, and we aren't the ones who get to decide what is actually an emergency. I have personally seen surgery schedules where a single instrument set was scheduled to be in 2 different operating rooms at the same time. This means that one of those surgeons had to perform their surgery without all of the instruments they needed. I've seen surgery schedules where a single set of instruments was scheduled in 5 surgeries back to back, being given only 15 to 20 minutes for sterilization between each surgeries instead of the 3 to 4 hours normally needed. TLDR. Demand that your surgery be scheduled as the first surgery of the day. The later your surgery is scheduled, the greater the chance that the instruments your surgeon receives haven't been sterilized using the standard process. This increases the risk of infection. I used to work at a pizza place. The pizzas cost us about $3 to make with the ingredients and electricity used from the oven, and we would sell them for about 5 times that price point. I used to work at a cafe, and they microwaved their scrambled eggs. They would leave raw food on the counter for hours at a time. They followed just enough health regulations to get by. I used to work at a daycare, and they would always have the children over ratio. The kids would often get yelled at by staff and weren't treated as you would want your child to be treated. The teachers were fake. They charged more than other preschools, yet weren't elite because their educators were just out of high school. They claimed to be Christian and teach Christian values, yet they would lie to the parents' faces on a daily basis. This preschool is the reason I will not put my son anywhere until he can talk and let me know if something was going on. I worked at a jewelry kiosk, and you could buy like 20 nose bones for the same price on Amazon for the price of one at that kiosk. I used to work at a political call center, calling people's homes to ask for money for the Republican Party, and many people working there were Democrat. I currently work at a pain management clinic, and we think all of our patients are drug seekers until proven innocent. My husband works for a 3-letter telecommunications company in the US. What would they not like their customers knowing? If they idle their trucks for more than 15 minutes, they are put on a step of discipline. In the city we live in, it routinely gets to be 100 or more before the heat index is factored in. The reason it takes sometimes weeks for customer lines, residential, to be fixed is because the CEO refuses to let any more workers in the pay grade my husband is in be hired. If you are in that pay grade, you are required to work a minimum of 12 hours of OT per week. If you don't manage to get that before your day off, you must work on your days off. Most days off are scheduled at the beginning of the work week, so you are lucky to get one day off. I know of many who are being forced to work 7 days a week. There are only a few states that require at least one day off. This company does not work in those states. If it's a safety issue to not be able to complete a job after dark, they are still required to work the job. Just add a couple of lights, they say. The trucks they drive around in only get oil changes once a year. Most trucks are 10 years old or older. A request to get the brakes fixed can take 30 days to process. New safety equipment, hard hats, generators for pumping air into or out of a manhole are rigged together to hopefully work. In other words, this company works their geysers off, then the CEO complains of loss of money, yet pockets millions of dollars in bonuses. Forces the guys to work in unsafe conditions, and yet any chance these guys are forced into retirement and new barely trained guys are brought in to fuck things beyond simple repair because they don't have the training. How much the company marks up the price on services. I work for building services company. The company provides services like office cleaning, window washing, wood and metal restoration, and more. The company will often bill double the price of what the company actually pays for the service done by a subcontractor. For example, for an exterminating job, the subcontractor will charge my company $75, and then the company charges the tenant $150. To change a light bulb costs the company $35. The tenant is charged $75 every year. The cleaning company increases these prices. The building tenants can't refuse because these services are provided by union employees. Cleaning companies are contracted to do work for an entire office building and its tenants. So if a tenant feels like they are being gouged for cleaning services, that tenant cannot shop around for cleaning services, and the tenant cannot clean the office themselves because it's provided by the union. But each tenant is provided with a contract for basic cleaning services that isn't expensive. It's when the tenant needs services that isn't covered in the contract that the cleaning company makes a real profit. Think of it like data overages on a cell phone contract. The biggest money maker for the cleaning company is removal of bed bugs. There are clothing stores on Fifth Ave that my company has had to remove bed bugs. I won't name those stores, but it's not the lower end clothing stores like H&M. The customer isn't the actual customer in a sense. I work for a big national radio company, you know who. You may think that listeners are our customer. Companies that buy advertising time are the real customer. That's where we make money. We need listeners to hear what these advertisers have to offer. More listeners equals higher ratings equals higher rate to charge for advertising. Don't get me wrong though. Everyone works hard at a local level to legitimately build and maintain an audience. Of course we have fun doing this stuff. We love to interact with our audience and get out into the world when we can. I work with some talented and creative folks, and they are great people. The problem is that at the same time we are having fun with our listeners, the corporate iron fist can come and smash through the door at any minute. Point the company is in debt and is currently in a hiring freeze. We have to make do with the minimum amount of resources that we are granted. The higher ups are always watching what we do with our money. They stop by multiple times a year to scrutinize and scrape for pennies. While we would love to engage in things that support the community that we live in, corporate will only let us go where the money is. All orders come from the top. We are told what to play, when to play it, who to support, and where to go. Some of you may already be aware of this industry, this company, and all of its antics. I've been directly called the devil and the reason why the music industry is so faked up. I won't take it personally if you don't. I sincerely love music and radio. We wouldn't be in this industry if we didn't. But remember that we have strings attached, and we must reluctantly comply while we keep a smile on our face. Where I used to work, Quicken Loans does not want you to know that they aren't actually the institution holding the vast majority of their loans. They are basically a table funder, but they still hold on to the servicing rights, so it appears like they control the whole process from start of the financing process to the end of servicing the loan. The immediate effect that I saw of this is that for people who originated their loan with Quicken Loans, they weren't able to refinance using programs like HARP. Even though we were partnered with servicing companies like Auckland and Ceteris to refinance their terrible loans, and the only requirement was that you hadn't been late on your mortgage in the past year. When it comes down to it, they have a huge front-end facade to hide a back-end that just isn't there. They sell all of their mortgages to somebody, whether it's the government, FHA, private investors, big banks, and just one investor for jumbo loans, or Fannie or Freddie, semi-government agencies. Also, lots of the people there are good people, but the turnover is atrocious. Maybe 10% of people last a year, and they are constantly hiring people to basically find the most mindless but trainable salesman. The odds are you are going to get somebody who has been there less than 2 years and are trained to be positive and happy, using analogies and branding to turn your no or maybe to a yes and make you do it today. There are some good reasons to work with them, and I'm sure some of this criticism goes for most lenders. Ex-employer: when you order a dry white wine or a glass of any wine from the long outdated menu, you will inevitably get a glass of whatever has been open the longest. Weirdly, very few customers, 3 at a push, ever, have actually commented that they didn't think what they received was what they ordered. The expensive liquor you ordered is actually the cheapest brand possible, bought from the shop just around the corner, repackaged in an expensive bottle. Not because we are trying to rip you off, but because we ran out of the good sheet and don't want to have to disappoint customers. Some, if not all, of the chefs and porters are illegal immigrants and hadn't been paid in over 6 months. The white staff get paid though. The management are so retarded they kept the business afloat for a little while on one-year loans with ridiculous interest. The area in which the beer kegs are kept is shared with an often open sewage pipe. When I asked the management about it, they insisted it was a pipe leading from the kitchen sinks that they were in the process of unblocking, but it really looked like sewage to me. Pretty sure the owner was Indian mafia. In the end, I quit to find a better job after going on a long holiday. I left still being owed over £1,000 in wages. I got paid a percentage of what I was owed whilst on holiday, but when I returned they'd closed up for redecoration and ended up liquidating. I work for a major chocolate company. I can't tell you which one, but the cleanliness of the environment and the guarding of the quality of the chocolate is very lax. If you're sick, you're forced to come into work, or you'll be written up, which means you have employees who are sneezing, coughing, and breathing directly into the packages just before they're being shipped out. Once I had thrown up violently in the parking lot before work. After seeing the mess firsthand, my supervisor and my union rep asked me if I had any sick days saved up. I didn't, so I was told to get back to work. I requested that at least for the remainder of the day I should work away from the chocolate and be delegated to something like janitorial work. My request was denied. The rules are that no one is allowed to touch the chocolate without gloves, and that eating the chocolate is strictly forbidden and will result in termination. I've been working here for almost 2 years, and I have literally personally witnessed every single employee here, about 200 people including upper management, disregard those rules and receive zero backlash. There are a ton of hand sanitize and hand wash stations set up every couple of feet spread throughout the plant. It's just the vast amount of people are too lazy to care about cleanliness. TLDR, a highly recognizable chocolate company, possibly the most recognizable, has absolutely horrible safety measures and a large portion of its shipped product is contaminated. I'll list all the ones I've worked for. This seems like a great thread to save and peruse later. Subway, it's franchise owned, so it's really variable. The one I worked at was pretty clean, except we had to grab the pickles from the pickle jar with wrist gloves and the pickle juice would actually go up to our elbows. Massachusetts State Parks. It's run by people who play a stupid game. The game is they understaff / undertrain / under-equip you, and you have to pretend during inspections that everything is fine. The pool I worked at had 2 managers, 1 head lifeguard, and 8 guards for 12/7 shifts. They expected us to teach lessons from 8 to 12, then guard from 12 to 8. Also, 4 kids off the streets in shifts were supposed to keep kids from sneaking back in the park once they've been kicked out. I was the head LG and was supposed to run the pool without a CPO license. One day there was way too much chlorine and we had to close the pool. My fault, but I didn't have the training to know what exactly I did wrong. Whenever the person in charge came for inspections, all the guards had to be out in their gear, swimming laps during scheduled breaks. If we ran it the way they wanted us to, no one would get their scheduled breaks. This system, I believe, later led to the drowning at a mass pool out near the Cape. The pool would always be over capacity, and we had no way of stopping them, except one untrained park worker standing in the front. You could easily slip around the side of the building or hop the fence if you didn't feel like waiting. TLDR, the pool system in Mass is broken, and the blame falls on the guards and managers when it's Mass actually creating the dangerous systems. Timeshare in general, the market is so flooded with people trying to offload their timeshares that it's incredibly wasteful on your part not to buy used. If you go to one of those presentations, they'll give you food, chat you up, then lay into you with the sale. I've heard other places are more laid back than ours was. What they're trying to do is sell you an item someone foreclosed on at full value. You can go online to eBay and buy it for $1 plus pay the fees to sign it over, maybe a $2,000 tops, instead of paying $25,000 for the same place. Worked for Anderson Consulting, currently Accenture. I was in the TIS area at the time, the Jeeks. We would be forced to make good, cash, the checks that the process folks wrote. This means they would not understand the technology at all, at least in my experience, and sell the client a bill of goods that we would somehow have to architect a solution. One project I was on was a $150 million boondoggle that was based on someone MBA master's project. Oh yeah, we can do that. We had IBM's biggest mainframe at the time, a 10-way 450 MIP machine that would not handle the business volume when running the project, written by people who were not all necessarily coders. When the project was kicked off, there wasn't a mainframe on the planet that could run the software's nightly batch schedule. I was on the performance team and had to instruct everyone how to efficiently code and how to properly use indexes so the DB/2 engine would kick in with sequential prefetch so our DBI/O times would be okay. It wasn't until the second year of the project that we were able to run cycles on the critical path to have the onlines come up in the morning too. Worked another project in a very warm city where the lead project/program manager who ran the operations side, onboarding of new consultants, etc., was using his Amex card for all expenses. That part was fine. But the guy accumulated 10 million miles or something like that and was using them for personal travel for family and friends. The client was American Express. They put the stop to it point. All in all, they overpromised and underdelivered. If they didn't have the early funding of the accounting side of the house, author Anderson, there is no way they would have made it. Bad business practices. Cost overruns directly billed to clients. Very nearly illegal visa management for Filipino employees. Everyone that was over was on a student visa. This screwed a friend of mine who married a Filipina. I'm a veterinary assistant at a well-respected small animal hospital. The people are genuinely kind and have always been great to the owners, animals, and fellow staff members, yet I would not want the owner, customer, to know that behind the scenes is a very different story than on appointment with a friendly doctor. Animal hospitals are seriously terrifying for animals. Why wouldn't be? Strange sterile environment, several animals barking and crying, being held down / restrained for procedures, and being around unfamiliar with people. Seriously, it can be dog hell. I personally struggled with working at an animal hospital at first. Mainly, it was because of the crying, howling, and barking of animals. It wasn't until I realized that though I absolutely love animals and am dedicated to their health and overall wellness, they are just very confused and scared. But think twice before boarding your dog in a kennel. Some are better than others, that's a given. Yet, I've worked at several hospitals, and the kennels always hurt me to work in. The cages can be very small, and staff will not hesitate to put larger dogs into small of a cage. They usually have one scrappy towel to cushion the metal cages. Messes are often made, disgusting messes, and they often need to be surrounded by it for an extended period of time. Especially overnight. There aren't many 24-hour kennels. Also, we cannot leave fans in kennel on overnight. Sometimes kennels aren't well air conditioned, and it can get very warm. They sleep in a warm cage overnight with several other howling dogs, needing to use the restroom, and scared. I have been told not to put too many towels in the cages. I say fuck that. I like to make the cage as comfortable as possible, and if that means collecting donated towels and doing extra laundry, so be it. TLDR, the vet is justifiably terrifying for animals. Do research when putting your animal in a kennel. Can be gross / mistreated. Used to work for a company that was, again, engulfed by IT. The company would put so much pressure on the folks in the business office, account reps and billing, to keep product sales up, they'd start pulling some bad shenanigans. I worked in a different branch of the company and still heard all about it. If you call and talk to someone with questions about your bill or your service, they write down that you requested some new feature and add it to your account. So when they used to charge for 69 or distinctive ring, you'd get it when you didn't ask for it. If you didn't notice it on the next bill and call to have it removed, it would count as a sale for that sales / service rep, and they'd get to keep their job if they did it to enough people. Back then if you had DSL you would get a dial-up account as backup, and for when you travel, for free. Then when a DSL customer would call me with an issue, I'd see on their account, and I didn't have the access to correct it, that they were paying for dial-up access on top of the DSL service, nearly doubling their bill. Same company would sell DSL lines faster than the manufacturers could deliver the equipment, so the guys working in the central office would often unplug an existing customer's DSL feature, so they could plug in a new customer and get them up and running for enough time that they'd have to pay the bill for it. Then when they called up yelling about an outage, the original customer would get the line again. I used to work for a major chain restaurant and I can't speak for every single one, but at mine some disturbing things happening were that foods kept on heat were used past hold expiration times. If something had gone past its hold time and had dried out, milk or water would be used to make it appear presentable. I know cooks there who had tried to throw away refrigerated food that had expired, but were told by management not to. The iced tea served there was made fresh every day, but I know very few servers who would clean out the tea urns properly, like I would at the end of the night. There had been times when I cleaned them that the stopper, or whatever it's called, would be full of build up / mold nastiness. This restaurant is open on Thanksgiving and bread was saved in the walk-in fridge for a month or two prior, in order to make stuffing. All the bread saved was the leftovers at the end of the night that had been sitting in a hot box for X amount of hours and then put directly into the walk-in in a large plastic bag and left there until it was time to make stuffing. There were times when we were not provided enough gloves from management because they were expensive and the store was trying to save money. Blah blah blah. From what I know, this isn't really an issue anymore, but it has happened in the past. Another post point: I worked at a fast food chain. The supervisor you see, who's all hyper and ready to help you with whatever you need. Meth, cocaine, etc. Our supervisors would routinely use drugs on the job. Honestly, I can't comprehend how these people even get hired. I worked at the store for about 2 months, and during that time we had 2 supervisors fired. One for being arrested for sexual assault and trespassing, and another for something I couldn't get the other manager to tell me about. Then the person they replaced them with had previous charges of sexual assault. Not to say that all my supervisors were absolute shit. We had 2 to 3 on all busy shifts at a time, but the ones who didn't suck do not get promotions. They would tell me about how they were on hold for over a year waiting for a spot that was filled by a convicted felon who routines abused drugs at work. Seriously, some of the shittiest people on earth. Also was asked to take food out of the fryer early, against code and regulation, to bring down the drive-through time. If you really hate someone and want their life to suck, and they just happen to working a drive-through, go through it. Take about 5 minutes picking something to eat. Take as much time as possible getting to the window, and when you get your food, demand for a refund. The whole process should take about 15 minutes, and when that clock above the window averages above a certain time, the computer automatically sends a report to the regional manager and someone gets beached out. Also, if you want free food, order something correctly like a cheap burger. Then, when the food comes up, say you ordered something else, you will 100% of the time get a free burger and the cashier gets beached out. Former bargain to mid-range department store employee. We were coached to use very unethical techniques when pushing credit card accounts onto customers. First, we were taught how to profile customers and concentrate on pitching the accounts to people who demographically might not be particularly savvy about financial matters and either wouldn't think to read the fine print first or understand what it all meant, which included immigrants, the elderly, and young adults. We were also coached to push hard on people who looked like they might not be able to afford all the things they needed or wanted to buy. Young couples, especially with babies, were a big demographic to target because they needed stuff to set up house and for the baby, and generally didn't earn much. Everybody with some form of valid ID and some form of income was approved for at least a small credit line, but the interest rates were outrageous. The big selling point was the low minimum monthly payment requirement. We were to explain to them that they could qualify for up to $800 in instant credit with minimum monthly payments of as little as $12, and really hype it up like these people could walk out with nearly $1,000 in merchandise and only pay $12 a month for it with no strings attached. What we were not allowed to explain or disclose in any way, shape, or form was that the minimum monthly payment wouldn't even cover your interest, much less make a dent in the original charge. So if you only made that minimum payment, your balance went up and up and up until you hit your credit limit. Then they slapped over limit fees on top of it all and charged monthly interest on them as well. During holidays, back to school, or whenever we were doing a big credit push, I would have customers come in and ask about the $12 a month credit card their friend or family member told them about and want to see if they can get approved too. It always made my stomach turn a little because these people had no idea what they were signing up for. I know it's their responsibility to educate themselves about these things, but it still felt very predatory and wrong. We were told that our responsibility was absolved when we handed them the pamphlet with the terms of the account when they were approved and got their receipt printout instant shopping pass to use until the actual card came in the mail. Yes, instant shopping passes. Hype them up, get them to spend, and spend right then and there, before they have a chance to think about it, or come down from the high of having been approved. We also had a quota to make, and if we didn't sign up enough people every week, we had to go off the sales floor during working hours, and go into the department office and watch educational and motivational videos on how to sell credit cards. We were working on straight commission, so every hour we were stuck watching BS videos was an hour we were not earning any money. I'm sure some of this was not legal, but if you dared to complain about any of it, you simply got scheduled for crap shifts when nobody was in the store, so you wouldn't earn any commissions. Play the game, or they will mess with your paycheck. I quit my former job as a disability insurance manager this month partially due to the following reasons. When a disability claim is approved for a month or more, then a lump sum of money is set aside for the life of the claim. This is called the claims reserve. If a claim is denied before the reserve is depleted, then the remaining money is put back on the company books as profit. My former company claims not to care about denying claims, but in reality it's all anyone cares about. The more claims that are denied after being approved for a month or more, the more money that the company makes. So when a person is assigned a claimant who is close to death, you'll hear things like, "Come on Jerry, you just need to make it to March, so I can get the claim on the books." Certain claims managers would do the death crawl, searching for the obituaries of terminal claimants. We can put you on surveillance, which means that someone will discreetly watch you from their car and or follow you and tape your actions to hopefully catch you faking disability. This has been legal for over 50 years via court rulings. There is something called pretexting, which is where the insurance company will set up situations to cause claimants to have to prove their disability. For example, sending someone a package waiting over their claimed lifting restriction, or staging a garage sale to speak with the claimant without the claimant knowing the true nature of the conversation. My company wouldn't do this, but others will. I used to work for a smoothie chain in the Santa Barbara area, and there are so many things I don't even know where to begin. Black mold in the orange juice machine and in the orange juice containers from which we pour orange directly into customer smoothies. They charge you 0.75 cents extra for 5 to 7 leaves of spinach in the supposedly green power drink, or 0.75 cents extra for half a leaf of kale in the kale smoothie on a smoothie that already costs $5, on the grounds that you are going green. The spinach one is only green because we dump green tea powder in that sheet. The rest of it is ice cream and sherbet. Their entire marketing scheme caters to people who think they are getting healthy drinks when really all the drinks are 80% sherbet or ice cream. They call it ice milk so it sounds better, and 10% frozen fruit. It's all sugar and fat. The only healthy drinks are the fresh juices, and in those the produce isn't washed even once. It's disgustingly common for carrots and oranges to have bluish mold on them, and good God, do not get me started on the bananas. We prep 5-gallon beans of bananas for easier scooping into blenders, as it gets very busy and efficiency is a must. But bananas immediately begin to go brown once peeled, as everyone knows. So sometimes, on a slow week, you can have a bin of bananas that has been in the fridge for 2 to 3 days. A brackish, brown slime begins to accumulate in the bottoms of the bin, which I endearingly call nana juice, and it is definitely one of the more foul substances in the store. It smells rank and it also goes into drinks every single day. Yum. This is true for the last couple of places I've worked. The call center employees hate the company and have more power to screw over the company more than you ever could. The secret is to not act like a raving asshole when you call in. If you treat the person on the phone like shit, even if you are upset at the company and not the employee personally, then we will follow policy exactly to the letter and you will get minimal compensation. Treat us like human beings and we'll move mountains for you. We know every crack in each policy and how to vet you better deals, free equipment, etc. The company banks on their frontline employees getting treated like human punching bags and to not give customers things out of spite. It's just human nature. And if you try this and you don't end up getting what you want, then chances are it is just one of those things that really cannot be changed. Don't go on some rant and say alls ya gots to do is just mash a button on yours computer rage. Nope, sorry, that is simply not the case. If you don't like it, the best thing you can do is take your business elsewhere and cite that as the reason you're disconnecting. Employees and customers can give feedback all day long about how X policy is shitty, but the company will continue to do it until they start losing customers over it. TLDR, treat frontline employees like humans. I'll come straight out with it. I used to work for Enterprise Rent-A-Car in the UK. There's a list of things you should look out for if you run a zero deductible / damage waiver and you notice some damage on the car shortly after taking it. Don't worry. You'll have damage logged against you, simply so they can get an old piece of damage fixed without having to charge anybody but the repairer that free upgrade. They ran out of cars in the class that you booked. Common knowledge, I guess. At larger branches, the airports, a lot of the time they are playing bingo with you. For sales competitions, we used to have a grid of products to sell, phrases to use, or actions to make to win bingo. It was good fun, if a little awkward. Who the fuck moon walks out of the door with the customer when upgrading? Normal strategy was to quote what the car would usually upgrade for. This figure was generally much more than what it would upgrade for, so we would make them a but just for you offer that was still higher than what the vehicle would upgrade for online or over the phone. It's a pretty unethical company when you aim so high with your expectations and then realize that you can't achieve what you set out to. You have to cut corners. I probably could recall a dozen other things that benefited the company over the customer. For anyone else that has had the pleasure of working there, UK only, a special fuck you to the U1F area manager and Tony Negrelli. What a cunt. I used to work for a cosmetics company that has an image of being organic / good for you / natural and expensive, with helpful and nice sales assistants helping you point. The truth is that as a sales assistant you were encouraged to treat customers as nicely as possible, regardless of how they treated you, including ignoring some seriously inappropriate touches. Furthermore, your goal was not, as the customers thought it was, to give them as good an advice as possible, but to sell them as much crap as you possibly could. Being the organic store that we were, people could return empty pots for us to recycle, and the customers would get a free face mask. Truth was that these face masks were about to go off anyway, so they'd be tossed in the bin if we didn't give them away. And the empty pots? We saved them up, and at the end of the day put them out with the regular trash, which we also didn't sort into different recyclables. Furthermore, we sold ridiculously expensive products, made from natural ingredients, fruits, veg, seaweed, etc. This was the one thing that was true. I think. Never been to the factory. We never had a sale going on except after Christmas, when only the Christmas products are 50% off, and only because we need to sell them cause they go off within a certain period of time. If products, regardless on sale or not, would go bad, we'd just throw hundreds of dollars of products away. Plus these products weren't expensive to produce anyway. I'd say every product could be made for at most 10% of the price they're sold for. TLDR, I worked for a cosmetics company that pretended to be awesome, but in all reality, was just as filled with corporate bullshit as any other company. I work for a small grill company that sells Kamado style grills. We have a limited warranty on our grills. It expires after a bit, but if you are nice to me / funny on the phone, I'll pretty much give you anything for free. We deal with a lot of people from Canada, so we are kinda going out of business from all the free shit I give away. Thanks Canada, you make my day awesome. I also used to work for Barnes & Nobles in the media section. I felt so bad for all the people coming in to pay $50 or $60 for a single season of Breaking Bad or True Blood, or whatever was popular at the time. If the person looked like a broke college student, I would often pull them aside and whisper, "Why the fuck are you paying so fucking much for this shit? You know you can just steal it online? At least sign up for HBO Go or Netflix if you feel bad about torrenting. It's like 10 goddamn bucks a month. You can easily finish one season in a month, and you save yourself $40-50. Quote, I can understand buying books, but seriously, who the fuck pays for brand new TV shows you're only going to watch once? Edit. Sheet, I almost forgot the best part of Barnes & Nobles. The employees can't do shit about you stealing anything. We are only legally allowed to scare you into thinking you're being watched. One time 2 guys walked in the media doors with hats on carrying a big cardboard box. This Barnes & Nobles was in a mall, so we had people walk in with boxes all the time. They set the box down next to the Beats by Dre stand and literally pushed all the headphones into the box. They picked up the box and walked out before anyone knew what was going on. It took them 48 seconds to steal $5,000 plus worth of headphones. We could never get their faces on camera because of the hats. Faking genius. Boys, don't steal. Stealing is bad. Mr. Mackey. That helicopter travel is more dangerous than traveling by road in a car or bus. Contrary to the popular belief that traveling by air is the safest form of transport, this goes for the whole chopper industry, not just a single company. They are happy to piggyback onto their customers' preconceptions about fixed-wing aviation industry safety records and attach it undeservedly to helicopters. Depending on which study/data you look at, it can go as high as traveling by helicopter you are more than 80x more likely to die than traveling the same time in a car. I work for a company that serves North Sea oil. I'd just like to state that I have full confidence that our company, our aircraft, except the 225 from a maintenance admin standpoint, pilots, engineers, even our manufacturers who have been getting slated recently. I'm looking at Eurocopter, who recently rebranded themselves Airbus Helicopters after a string of fatal crashed to piggy back onto the Airbus brand with its publicly conceived safety record. However, helicopters are inherently dangerous and lack all the natural glideability that fixed-wing aircraft possess. I'm not suggesting that you should not get in one. If you don't want to take chances with your life, then don't get out of bed in the morning. We must all weigh consequences with reward. I mean, I ride a motorcycle. To put things in perspective, I'm pretty sure that only bicycle cycling in a town is more dangerous than that. At one point I worked for an automotive plant that specialized in ignition modules and tire pressure sensors for Hyundai, Toyota, Dodge, and Chrysler builds. My job had a plethora of things I could speak about that would probably make those companies all pull their manufacturing contracts. But my favorite example is when my boss figured out that we were supposed to be checking these gelled crystals on the tire pressure sensors and just decided not to do it for 8 months. I knew the circuitry and had enough general knowledge of the part that I got selected for the puppet show. When Toyota sent a big wig to tour our plant and she realized they'd be looking for that, she had 3 of us build a fake station with a mantis microscope and had me sit there pretending to check the magazines of hundreds of these sensors that our quality department had looked over and knew were passable point. So I sat inside through my lunch at a fake workstation we'd assembled in 10 minutes, checking known to be good parts so that when the guy walked by it looked, at a cursory glance at least, that we'd had this station and were doing everything to specifications I was contracted, and because of this the friggin' plant manager offered me a steady staff job instead of working by contract. That place had a new violation to sweep under the rug literally daily. If Ocean knew half the shit we saw and looked the other way on, our plant would have been boarded up and closed down a long time ago. I used to work at a coffee and gelato shop that also sold other food. First of all, the place was a pigsty. It looked really nice in the front, but the back of the shop was a faking disaster. The owner would water down the soap so he didn't have to refill it as often and get upset when I replaced it with real soap so customers could actually clean their hands. He also refused to keep paper towels by the sink in the back except for when he knew the health inspector was coming, because it was health code to have a sink with soap and paper towels for hand washing. He also watered down the soap and sanitizer for the dishwashing sink. He would have us mop the floor at night, a normal thing to do, except for the fact that he refused to buy an actual mop. So we used a broom and a rag with boiling water, which was a huge pain in the ass. The milk fridge was leaked, and there was constantly milk on the floor, which I did my best to mop up with the broom and rag combination, to little avail. And then there was the panini grill, which was actually my biggest qualm with working there. It was one of those non-stick ones intended for home use, but it saw a lot of use in the shop. First of all, he forced us to keep it on all day, which, as some of you know, causes the non-stick to produce carcinogenic substances. At the end of the night, he wanted it cleaned, again, normal, but he tried to force us to scrub it with a steel brush, which took the non-stick right off of it. So I once again refused to do that, which I would hear about via text every time he noticed it. The non-stick was literally coming off to reveal the aluminum below it. His justification was everything causes cancer these days. Needless to say, I quit that job and moved on to better things. The restaurant industry is disgusting. I try not to think about what goes on in other kitchens that don't receive a review like we did. This is actually a bit of an important thing and is only partially related to the company I work for. It is one of many storage facilities in the US. We are forced to sell locks to new rentals. We are supposed to tell them that our locks are super awesome and will keep their good safe point. What most people don't know is almost every lock that can be purchased for $20 or under use at most 6 different tumbler sets. So there's only 6 different pin settings that the locks are set up with. At my property there are close to 600 units. Renting there and buying the lock gets you a key that could open possibly hundreds of other units. I'd say this is shady as hell, except that's just the nature of cheap locks. We don't manufacture them, though they are branded, and pretty much every other cheap lock manufacturer does the same thing. This is probably too late to get much notice, but I thought it should get more attention than it currently has. The easiest way to deal with the problem is actually to purchase 2 different locks and check the keys aren't the same. That way even if someone can open one they more than likely can't do both. Also don't use normal padlocks. Disc locks are much better, since it takes a concentrated effort to cut those as compared to padlocks, which I can generally remove with a hammer. Used to work at one of the biggest Australian supermarket chain, Woolworths. For anyone interested, I worked in almost all the departments including front end, checkouts, night fill, groceries and produce point. If you've paid for an item and it's the wrong higher price, we will let you keep the item and give you your money back. If you haven't paid for the item and it's scanning at the wrong higher price, if you say something we will sell it to you for the lower price. When working in the produce department, we swept the floor if we felt like it once a day. We have bad stock all over the place. We leave boxes on the floor and on top of bins. We clean the knives with water and just wipe the bench with a cloth and maybe spray point. You need an item as there's none on the shelf. I happen to know there's some out the back, but you're rude, so I'm just going to say we don't have any point. If we don't have an item and you want to know when we will stock it next, I can easily look up when the next delivery will come in. But if you're rude, I'll just say I don't know. If you need help and I don't know anything about that department or question, I will go get someone who does. If you are rude, I will tell the next person and they will do the minimum amount of work to help you point. If you tell me to hurry up because you're in a rush, I will go out the back and spend a few minutes chatting. If I'm on checkouts, I will purposely scan as slow as I can point. We know you are stealing, but we won't call the police unless you're violent or stop you, as we don't care and aren't allowed to touch you. However, we will say, are you going to pay for that? Which translates to we know you're stealing, but going to pretend we don't. Those alarmed pillar things that you walk through don't actually beep on 98% of the products, and half the time when they do beep it's just your library card or video store card. Point when using self-serve, a staff member is most likely keeping a mental track of your beeps to ensure you aren't skipping items. Yes, we are told to stereotype based on race and age. Where I live in particular, it is mostly correct to some extent. When pre-packed produce, 1 kilogram pre-packed apple/pre-packed salad, that sort of thing, expires, we normally just open up the packet and add it to the loose display. For example, if a pre-packed punnet of pears expires, we will just open the packet and put the pears on the loose pear display. Point we throw, slide and toss all the stock around the back dock and down the aisles. If we drop produce on the floor, we will pick it up and put it back on display. Meat, produce and deli items are often left in the hot back dock for hours. Stuff like strawberry punnets. If we discover a moldy strawberry in it, we will take it out and put it back on display. Point if you toss bags or your change on the counter, I'm going to pack your items as badly as possible. Point if you come through express, 12 items or less, with a full trolley, shopping cart, and you are decent and friendly, we will serve you. If you are rude or arrogant, I'll send you to self-serve. I've worked at a certain company twice now, once in a supercenter and once in a neighborhood market, NHM. There are so many things they try to keep from the customers first. Other than salaried members of management, no one can do anything to help you other than what is in their job description. Yeah, I can help you look for a product, but you want a discount on a broken item? I need to speak to management. You have an odd request. If it breaks any molds, I have to talk to management. Speaking of management, they and asset protection are the only ones that can do anything about theft. If you show up in the middle of the night, pack a backpack full of cosmetics, even if it is in front of a stoker, the only thing said stoker can do is try to find a manager. By that point, you're gone. Point most people already know this, but the pay and conditions suck. That is one of the reasons that you won't find anything that remotely resembles good customer service. I'm being paid a minimum to stock inventory and deal with any BS that happens on my aisle. You may be a nice customer, but for every 5 customers that are nice, there is another 3 that are impatient, 4 that are dicks that view themselves as superior than the hourly associates, and a couple assholes that are trying to piss people off. Our price match may say on the advert that you don't need to bring in the ad, but you need to bring in the ad, and I can still deny or bring in a supervisor/manager to say just the same. Want to get the most for your money? Treat me and my co-workers with respect. Yes, part of my job is to assist customers. Yell, get pissed off, or try to be a dick to me, and I can find a reason to work in the back, give you vague directions to some Tartarus of a corner of the store, deny all your ads for price match, and generally screw your shopping trip to hell. I have and will point pull sheet like leave your music blaring on your phone, walk around smelling like sheet, or be accosting on the senses. The only thing that keeps us from kicking you out is no customer has said anything yet. Customer complaints about things we can control are one of the few things that we actually take seriously. Just don't complain too much, you may get what you want. But see the paragraph above this one, the bathrooms may be scrubbed down once in a week. That floor is still nasty, even if I ran a somewhat soapy mop over it. Ignore the sign that says you can tell management. Everyone except maybe the store manager does. The company probably doesn't want you to know about this, but our turnover is something of legend. It is perfectly reasonable to cycle everyone other than management and about 10% of the floor staff over the course of about 6 months. This means that the number of cashiers, floor stockers, and whatnot usually has a very small amount of experience doing their jobs. And that training we do on the computers? It's rubbish. Finally, there is a reason that I don't buy frozen goods where I work. I've stocked and see them stocked. At neighborhood markets at the very least, frozen is regularly the heaviest section for pallets and case counts. They usually have a deficit of workers because it sucks to work frozen goods, and there is such a high demand for speed and productivity that all sorts of corners are cut. Officially, no cold chain merchandise, aka frozen, refrigerated, and certain produced products is supposed to be outside of a refrigerated environment for more than 20 minutes. Good luck with that. If you're lucky, then they are pulling pallets to the sales floor in frozen. This is the best of all worlds, because the pallet will insulate the boxes on the inside of the pallet stack. If you're not lucky, they did what we had to when I was working frozen. Parking pallets in the open door to the freezer, downstacking them to carts, which usually took about 20 minutes in and of itself, and pulling those to the sales floor to be worked. However, what has actually been happening recently has been the overpass crew pulling pallets to the sales floor, downstacking the frozen merchandise onto the floor in front of the door that it goes in, and leaving it loose, at or above room temperature, for as long as it takes to actually get to stocking the merchandise. That sheet is thawing, and the only reason that it is not more obvious is that the cardboard is actually getting wet off the condensation. There is a way to check. Basically, if the ice cream is frosted over, don't trust anything in the frozen food section. If there is a solid layer of frost, that means stuff is thawing and refreezing. The ice cream will be a brick of ice, and everything else has had a chance to thaw. TLDR, in a certain company that runs supercenters and neighborhood markets, the hourly associates are powerless to do anything that isn't in the mold for the position, including stop theft. Price checks can and will used against you as whole customers will get their just desserts. We are all undertrained and underpaid, and it shows. And don't trust frozen, especially if the ice cream is seriously frosted over. I'm sure no one here will be surprised, but I'm currently employed at a tobacco shop. Though his particular tobacco shop would probably be referred to by most as a head shop. We sell tobacco pipes, water pipes, papers, etc. along with many other items ranging from incense, real cigars, tapestries, sex toys, and many other things. The one I work for is actually a chain that has been in business for almost 25 years. If there was anything I wouldn't just blurt out to the average customer, would be the profit margin on all of our products. The only thing we don't make a killing on is cigarettes, as we only make about 20 cents per pack. You might say this is because we're required certain things to be considered a tobacco shop, but that's another story. Point. Your average pipe, water pipes, or anything glass is usually 200% profit, if not more, on our part. Even with that, there's just about nothing that we don't make at least double what we pay for it. It's how we stay in business. A lot of money just sits on the shelves for an extended period, so we are forced to sell things at a rate that we don't constantly have all of our money tied up in volume. Now that seems like a shop like ours is basically bending you over the table and faking you for money due to the convenience and services we provide. That's because we are. Point. With all this being said, though, just about any competitor around us, which tend to be extremely close to our shop, usually charges double or triple what we do on the exact same items. Now their reasons, I couldn't really help you on that one. Source, head shop sales clerk who loves his job and wants to say fuck them other shops. Let's learn some things about grocery stores in Canada. Subis charges $2.99 to $6.99 for varying sizes of soup. A majority of it is provided by Campbell's. Subis pizza dough is the same exact dough pizza Nova uses. We get it in frozen in huge quantities and spray it with oil, then put it into bags, where it sits for upwards of 24 hours before being used. Subis employees quit frequently because the management is either completely idiotic, insensitive, or just plain lies to employees about things like raises, vacation pay, time off, etc. They throw everything out. No, they don't keep it. No, the employees can't take it. And no, they can't give it to you for cheaper. $250 of freshly cooked product every single night is thrown in the garbage. Every single product in the bakery comes in frozen. There isn't actually a mixer in the bakery. Even the cakes that we make fresh for you are frozen, pulled out, thawed, iced, and then decorated. During busy times, part-time employees work upwards of 60, 70 hours per week. During the slow times, those same employees are given 5, 20. If you are good, you can get hours in more than one department to get 40 hours as part-time. They never hire full-time when possible. The only good news is that Subis is really big on freshness. If anything gets packaged, even if you can hold it for longer, it only gets 3-4 days before it's thrown out. The only other thing I know about this business is that the freshly squeezed products from Fortinus are made every few days from fruit that has in most cases started going bad and may or may not already have mold growing on / in it. I used to work at ShopRite during high school, which is a major grocery retail in the states around New York City. Anyways, literally nothing. First I was a cashier. Management bent over backwards for customers. Security was tight in regards to losses. Then I was in customer service. Pretty much, if you weren't a dick to us, you got what you wanted, as long as you had some kind of proof, like a receipt or something. And since all our receipts are on record, if you weren't an ass, I could find your previous order by looking up your membership 100% free number if it was used on that order. We had no access to your personal information beyond your phone number and state driver's license. If you used checks, your credit card info, no one in the store has access to that. Hell, not even corporate has access to it. We source it out. If the product wasn't 100%, the customer wasn't to pay 100%. If the can's label had a smear on it, they still had to pay full because the product is contained inside. But if their bread was somewhat crushed, 50% off, or just free. Your apples are in a container that weighs 0.02 pounds. 0.02 pounds off the weight of the apples to compensate. So you're not paying for the weight of the container, which is against the law, by the way. Then I worked in produce at a different ShopRite store. Different operators. 95% of the box of tomatoes has one wrinkle. All garbage. You see me walking back and ask if I can have a tomato. I give you them all for free. Again, security is tight. You give a customer a product for free that they should have paid for. You're fired. Herbs come fresh daily, and if we don't get an herb in the morning, we don't have it for the day or the week. I would honestly say that more than half of the food we get, we throw out because it's not up to our standards. We're out of cucumbers? Go in the back, find a box of cucumbers. Some are moldy. Sorry ma'am, we are out of fresh cucumbers. Not fit for Sale point, my mind literally couldn't process the amount of food that goes to waste. It's not even reused in the soup in the next day, nor is yesterday's soup used in the next day. Funny story about soup. I was emptying the day's soup bowls into the organic composter because the soup lady was frail and weak. Then, I dropped the $100 stainless steel container into the composter. The lady freaked out because she was a new hire and was scared about retribution. I called over the store manager, who was also my personal manager. He took one look in the composter and was like, oh well. And the lady was like, is that coming out of my pay? He laughed and said, no, don't worry about it, shit happens. And I was like, sorry about that. To which, my manager says, just be more careful next time. The spilled soup on the side makes the metal very slippery. I have never worked for a company as transparent as them. Just wanted to give some positive feedback that there are companies that aren't as holes. Too late to the party. This will be get buried. But whatever, I worked for a commercial bank that was operationally a mess. They didn't have enough computers or laptops to go around, so everyone had to share workstations. But because it took too long to link an account to the hardware, instead of everyone using their own logins, each computer had one person's login that everyone shared. You would walk past our cubicles and see everyone's logins written down on post-it notes. Once you were logged in, you could also access the server with all the shared files. Not that much of a problem, except that people put sensitive client files in there, and it was accessible to anyone who had logged in. Not just people in our team, or even our division, but every single person in the bank. One day, everyone was sent a memo saying that there will be a desk inspection in 3 weeks' time. It's company policy, quite common in banks, to have clean desks, as in no files left visible, and everything locked up in the drawers. Obviously, people didn't do that. They literally had 5-inch high stacks of folders / paper / statements covering their whole desk except for the keyboard / monitor area. The only day that there wasn't anything on anyone's desk was when the inspectors came. Terrible security. In contrast, I worked at another bank which made you swipe your access card 4 times before you could get to your desk. They also had physically isolated offices to complement Chinese walls. And everyone actually cleared their desks before leaving every day. I work for a for-profit, mostly online college. We have a campus, but it's in the middle of nowhere and nobody goes there. Here's the truth. Between ourselves, we are constantly making fun of the idiots we talk to on the phone. The decent students with realistic expectations and a strong motivation we love. We don't make fun of you because you are admirable. But you are not the majority of the people we talk to. We talk to guys who can't spell or even pronounce the name of the street they live on without their girlfriend helping them. We talk to people who think they should be able to get a bachelor's degree on just the Pell Grant alone and have it cover everything. We talk to people who say they want to go to school online, but neither own nor understand how to operate a computer. We talk to people who think they can get a nursing, engineering, automotive repair, or heating/venting/AC repair degree entirely online. We talk to people who claim to work for the Pentagon and have a figure 8 burned into their carpet because they discovered something they shouldn't have, and that's why they want to get a cognitive studies degree. If you fall into any of these categories, you are completely delusional, and as soon as you hang up the phone, we will not hesitate to turn to a coworker and complain about the idiots we have to deal with all day. And all these people above, these are people I have actually spoken to. I didn't make any of those up. I used to work as a receptionist at a 5 yoga resort in Cyprus, and they'd offer all sorts of different packages ranging in price from €500 a night to about $3,000 a night. You get the same rooms, same treatment, same food and same service, no matter what package you choose. Some clients caught onto this, and I had to take all of the shit for it. I ended up giving away free yoga classes and massages to anybody who complained enough and had paid extra for nothing, then nearly got fired over it. Also, half of the staff is illegal. My girlfriend is Canadian and was told she could without a visa, and there were about 15 Americans all there who also were working illegally. A lot of the staff went, unpaid for no reason at all. They made me drive their company car several times, even though I was only 16, and without a license. They claimed to only have vegetarian food in their kitchen, but most of the staff including I would throw parties in the restaurant and cook pizza with all different types of meat on it. The boss was insane, and fired people and screamed at people whenever he felt. One client was on his phone, even though the resort is a tech detox place, and our boss kicked him out without a refund, even though he'd paid a shit ton of money to stay there faking crazy experience. I loved every second. Oh yeah, I also worked behind the bar for more than a total of 100 hours serving alcohol, even though I was only 16 at the time, so there's that too. Things they want everyone to know, but no one believes. Our warranty isn't actually that bad. Our extended service contract isn't that bad and actually offers some stuff of value. If you are the kind of person who needs help frequently and don't want a paper call, then buy the policy. You'll get an extra year on your warranty and discounts on advance replacement. Also, if you do get advance replacement, there is no way around us putting a hold on your credit card for the value of your device. Don't ask for a manager or a supervisor, or exception point things they probably don't want you to know. If you go to our store and they say your repair/replacement is going to cost money due to being ooh, you can always call our agent tech support. If you complain enough, or point out that you've never needed a repair before, the odds are good we'll comp it. You have to ask for a supervisor to make this happen. Our stores can actually do this as well, but typically don't. For whatever reason, the company really discourages it in stores, but less so for the call centers. My boss cares more about us getting good scores on our surveys, so that means if we can make up a reasonable excuse, it's fine. On top of this, if you tell the supervisor that a store told you that we would cover it for you, you're almost guaranteed to get it covered. The way it's set up also allows the store to handle the replacement. They are not issuing the exception, just honoring it. The people that are offering tech support are wildly varied in skill. Probably not a surprise, but even the senior techs are a grab bag. We hate it, but if you hang up and call back, you could get someone with 10 years of tech experience versus a numbskull who can barely string 2 words together, but performed well enough for the promotion point. If you treat me badly, I will do everything I can to make your experience bad. If you treat me well, I will almost certainly cover any repairs for free just cause I can, and make recommendations for stuff we aren't able to do ourselves. Bonus round. Old job. If you call your cable/phone/ISP and act like dick, I'll spend the next hour pulling up your account and resetting the various pieces of equipment you own to ensure you don't enjoy your evening very much. I used to work for a large bank in Canada, and I'm pretty sure this happens across the board in the industry. They made us push supplemental accident insurance on the clients. The problem is that insurance is absolute garbage. We were legally obligated to read the full list of exclusions fast, of course, and it left almost no room for a claim. It's meant to supplement an existing insurance policy and provide extra cash in the event of an injury. So what's the problem with offering clients to bump up their existing insurance? Well, our campaigns especially targeted low-income people, new immigrants, etc., who can't really afford real insurance. That means no existing coverage to supplement, and you're basically charging them a monthly amount for something that will probably not apply to them if they have an accident. Me and other people realize this, but the insurance was part of your quota, and if you didn't do it, you got a warning, regardless of how you were doing with other products, like loans or credit cards. 3 strikes and you're out. The way this works is, they get you to try for 30 days, and give you the option to cancel, which they hope you'll forget about, and never actually use. If you're feeling generous towards the guy calling you, who's just trying to do his job, by the way, you can take the insurance and cancel, as it will still count towards his numbers. But otherwise, don't buy insurance from your bank, unless it's for a loan or line of credit, as it is probably not comprehensive, and won't really do much, if you're in need. We are a totally legal money laundering operation. If there's an IT project at your company that goes millions over budget and doesn't close until years after projected date, it was on purpose. This is for tax benefits or government reimbursable grants, and you will never catch an executive saying outright what is intended, nor will you find any emails with evidence of such, because it's always conveyed with certain actions and a knowing nod. To know if you're on one of these projects, project leads or managers are comprised of those employees. Meaning, they have failed consistently in everything they've done, yet you cannot attribute their continued employment to nepotism or EEO. They are kept around because they need failures for stuff like this. And no, these people aren't in on it. They suck at what they do, but they will work very hard, and that's what makes them ideal employees. The business organization that is paying for it tells the project techs they are taking a hands-off approach, so you all can work your magic. During quarterly updates them saying this better be resolved, or back up to schedule by the next or we are making some changes. But they say this every time. Nothing changes because the work is perfect to suit their need. The biggest indication you're on one of these is when the contract with the third-party contracting agency has a clause that reimburses the hiring company the majority of their payments if certain benchmarks aren't met. Still, the contract liaison rarely meets with project leads and doesn't seem to give a shit when contractors voice concern about the project. It is a massive, perfectly legal slush fund. You see, with computer system and other data projects, they don't have a lot of tangible indications of progress. It's not a bridge or a building. It is tough to understand what progress had been made, unless you're very technically smart. Something most regulatory agencies or investors are not. The $3,000 home security system we are going to give you for free costs us less than $250, and we will end up getting over $3,000 out of you in monitoring fees. It costs us very little to stock a call center, so the monitoring fees go straight into our pocket. Point: we are advertising in your neighborhood and want to put up a sign. Bunch of crap. It's a sales tactic and no one at the company cares about the sign. Point: if you give us your name we'll use it when we pitch your neighbors. No soliciting sign. Who cares? Laws are never enforced, and houses with no soliciting signs buy just as much as anyone else. Point: as much as we try to spin it, or sometimes outright lie about it, you are signing a contract for 5 years. Early termination fee? Yeah, just pay off the remaining months of the contract. Point: if you give us your name and birthday we are pulling your credit. Sometimes we can get a hit off name and address alone. Point: I worked for multiple companies in both the field and the corporate office. Feel free to cruise my comment history for stories. Point: edit. When I worked in corporate I had access to all your system passwords, in addition to your basic contact info. I could have looked up the info for a person, dropped by their house and broken. When the company called to verify the alarm I could just give the password and I would be home free. I'd probably have to pick someone without a cell phone listed, but that should be easy enough. Worked for a telecommunications company that also sold third-party services, cell phone contracts, satellite TV, etc. We were all but told directly to lie about the prices for DirecTV. The customers would sign contracts at installation and wouldn't read the details. If they called us asking us to honor the DTV misquote, we'd refer them to DTV, because we couldn't adjust that part of the bill. DTV wouldn't honor misquotes made by another company. The agents who lied about rates, even on recordings, we are never ever punished, and were given large bonuses in addition to their commissions for having stellar sales numbers. Those of us who were honest got reprimanded for not meeting sales goals. That's a large part of the DTV business model. They almost always sell through third-party services. Those guys at Walmart and Best Buy aren't DTV, so they can misquote. Nobody wants to pay $185.00 a month starting year 2 for TV service that doesn't work when it rains. Also, if you don't call regularly and ask for things to be removed, they'll automatically add charges to your bill. Their cheapest plan for one DVR with HD will be $171.99 after 1 year if you don't call and remove the premium channels, which can't be opted out of for a month after service installation, so you'll forget, and NFL Sunday Ticket, which auto renews every year. I worked there for 3 years in college. Actually, it was after hours and was bought out by MW. Point: complain about any and everything and you can get it free. Corporate just doesn't want the headache. Point: as far as I know, if you don't return the tux, you won't be charged for it. Same goes with late fees. Just don't pay. I've never heard of it being reported. Point. If you're in a time crunch, you can have your suit delivered to you. MW actually has an allowance for this. The sales team is a bunch of commission-based vultures. They don't actually like you, just your money. They also want to bang your wife. There's always a sale or coupon coming. Just wait. If you want to buy something, point, keep your receipts and check them. Sometimes you can get free stuff. For example, at one time, there was a coupon for $5 off any purchase in the store and the socks were $2.50. We were pushing 2 pairs per customer just to get rid of them. They're free anyway. Corporate must have caught onto our inventory dumping because the coupon turned into $5 off $20 shortly after. Point. Pocket squares and socks included is a $10-12 rip off. The sales staff are required to try to sneak in some permaseam / forever crease / whatever the F it is that creases your pants into your clothing order when you buy suit pants. It's pointless and doesn't do anything for you except cost you more money. Point. If you're in at least 2 formal events in a year's span, just buy the tux. It's cheaper for you and it'll fit you better. Point. If you want genuine help, ask for someone who isn't a sales associate on the floor, or go to a MW tux. Their income is not solely based on how much they sell to you. Point. If you want a child to be in a wedding, do not rent a tux from them. Go to a depth store like Burlington Coat Factory and get them a nice $70 suit and shirt and just rent the vest and tie for $25. Point. The shoes are uncomfortable, but we couldn't do anything about that. There is no drug policy. My old manager smoked weed every day. My manager before him was an alcoholic. Point. Yep. Past job 1. Local grocery store bakery department. Point. You will be fired if you are too slow to close the department 2 hours before the store closes due to the outrageous amount of bullshit they give you. Apostrophe. All of the fresh baked breads, cookies, and muffins are bought wholesalers, either partially baked or uncooked frozen blocks of foul smelling sludge. Point. The same fresh baked goods have usually been sitting out for a day or two with flies, ants, and possibly rodents climbing all over them. You will not have access to adequate cleaning supplies for the counters, appliances, and floors. The wash rags, mop bucket, and or cleaning spray will all begin as a dingy grey. Point. Past job 2. Popular after school activity program. We have no control over your children. Point. You have been told that this will enrich children's minds and bodies and empower them. Blah blah blah. In reality, we give 7 to 13-year-olds popsicle sticks to glue together and then leave them to do whatever. Basically, your children are in a glorified preschool. Enroll them in football or tennis or something. Current job fishmonger. My boss refuses to upgrade concession stand that is literally rotting out from under our feet. Point. Well, 75% of stock is fresh / alive. Any leftover stock we have is often frozen and later as old as fresh shrimp. Especially, cross-contamination is inevitable. Seriously, if you're allergic to shellfish, you should maybe buy packaged frozen fish elsewhere. Point. TLDR, while not all dirty secrets are morally repugnant, everyone's got them. Make sure you do your homework, guys. Edit. Also spiders. Canadian Property Stars, CPS, before known as Spring Masters. Former employee, we get paid sheet commission, no minimum wage, so trying to lower the price of lawn aeration we would move to next person. Average pay at end equals $0 on bad day, $50 on really good day, 8:30 AM to 9 PM. We get forced to work even in downpour while there is lightning using a metal lawn aerator. Lol. When we ask to use washroom or have a bottle of water, we really need it, since the work is all day with no washrooms or place to drink water or eat food. Do not get driveway ceiling from CPS. The company overcharges the prices to rip off people, sometimes over 75% markup, while getting a tiny commission, 16% out of $150. We also don't give a shit if we get tough to remove tar on your sidewalk, garage door, or anywhere else that will be annoying in the future. CPS will also overcharge you for basic things like crack sealing, which takes forever to dry, and if you step on it, it will leave mark forever. Do not get lawn aeration From CPS, most workers are careless. If you have underground sprinklers, hoses or anything that an aerator can pierce through, if you have a narrow backyard entrance, we will squeeze through. Even if it means bending your downpipes or breaking the fence, we just don't give a shit as long as we get paid. If a new worker is doing your lawn for the first time, be prepared for lots of damages. Since they don't have experience with the speed and weight, most will scratch your sidewalk finish, may dent your car, and destroy your flowers because there wasn't enough space to move around. Some customers asked if they should work for CPS. Run. Don't walk from CPS. They will exploit as much as they can from you while getting as much profit as possible, while you get almost nothing. Some third world countries in Africa pay better money. Managers treat us like sheep, so if you give us problem while we are going service, there will be a problem point. The way the company survives is by hosting job fairs once a week, since most people stop working after one day. They know that young high school / college / university students will fall for the trap and apply, seeing the ad promising $100-400 cash a day. At the job training, you do some tests where the answers are on the screen. Then you sign waivers stating that CPS is not liable for lawsuit and you cannot sue the company for any reason, even if your aerator explodes or the driver to your neighborhood crashes, making you disabled. The waiver also makes the worker responsible for any fines, but that vanishes if you quit. Don't work or accept work by CPS and the company will fall, and hopefully very soon. TLDR. Canadian property stars, CPS is a big scam. Workers are under lots of pressure, working all day while getting paid very little. Don't do business with them and don't apply there. I work for a tech support company that I can't reveal the name of. Anyway, our tech support mainly services customers of another particular franchise who isn't above scamming the shit out of their customers. So the hierarchy goes like this: douchey franchise, tech support. Anyway, the douchey franchise sells this product called Complete Office, boasting it is a cheaper alternative to Microsoft Office, except they claim it does everything Office does. It doesn't. So customers buy this product believing it is Office. What they would not like the customer to know is that Complete Office is 100% a skinned benefice. For those who don't know, a benefice is completely free, and if I'm correct, I believe they sell it for around $100-200, taking complete advantage of people who aren't good with technology. If you compare OpenOffice with Complete Office, nothing is different at all. You can go to the benefice wiki and troubleshoot it using the same steps you find there. The tech support company I work for, though, has a lot of decent people who are disgusted by this, even the higher ups. But douchey franchise makes too much money scamming their customers this way, so they won't stop, and since we get our main business from them, we won't actively try to discourage them. Whenever I have a client who doesn't have Office and money is a problem, I just straight away suggest a free alternative instead of referring them back to douchey franchise, where they will just become feed for those vultures.